Morning, this is Animal on Control. Welcome to the voice chat. These calls are pre-recorded for upload to social media, and by joining a call, you are consenting to being recorded. Anyone wishing to join a call should email me at animaloncontrol@gmail.com, and I will reply with instructions. Today's topics: new guest, forest encounter, comments on leashing, anti-mud YouTubers, ah ha 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 ha, animal control economics, and perhaps, if we have time, some gun porn. Joining me today is Sheepie, and we have a new guest. Actually, I didn't ask it. How do I refer to you? Should I just call you Huntress? Does that work? Or
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay. So we have Huntress is been a frequent commenter on many videos, not just of mine, but other folks in the space. Had a lot of interesting things to say. I think I featured your comments at least a couple of times. So yeah, thanks for joining. So to get the ball rolling, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and what interests you in the space.
I'm nervous.
Don't worry about it.
So if I short.
Yeah, don't be nervous. No, yeah, you have excited to have you on. You have really great comments all the time. So.
Oh, thank you. I'm probably the oldest one in the circle, I imagine, and done a lot of different things in my life. But what brought me to the space was just this neighbor thing. Like, my living room window, where I spend a lot of my time, is 10 feet from the backyard that bumps up against my property. And it was like 7 years ago, there were these two little yappers, and they just barked at everything. Ugh. So I was so angry, and one day I got, onto Brave Search, and, in all caps, I fucking hate dogs. And then, saw the Reddit and found IHD's channel and started listening, going, oh my God. I mean, you just think you're all alone in this. And I just couldn't believe it, that there was actually people speaking out, and then I found Defender's channel. She addressed the barking, and I don't know. It's different barkers now. The moment of peace was a lady that lived there for 2 years, a germaphobe. She sold it and went back to Chicago, and now the current people are in there. It was heaven, because she didn't have any pets. We'd go hiking together. In fact, one time we were hiking up, there's kind of goes up into the foothills, and we came up against, because she was deathly afraid of dogs, like me, and it looked like a coyote or a German Shepherd, and we just stood there and froze. She grabbed my arm, and okay, let's just go right back up. So that's a big problem around here, loose dogs. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, the noise pollution thing. I think that's an underrated aspect of this, because the dog noise pollution is a big problem, and it's a enormous human health concern, because it totally degrades your mental and physical health. And one point I like making to people is to say, you know what? Because one part of it's the sleep deprivation, but if you deprive someone of sleep long enough, they die.
Yeah, it's sanity too. That's not a nice
sound.
Yeah. It's an angry, ugly, violent sound. It's not like chirping birds. And I got a lot of birds around here, and ravens, and the blue jays are kind of the mean bully birds, but they aren't at it all day and night or whatever. So and people are like, why are you so sensitive to that? And it's like, why can't you hear it? It's like that permeates. Even if it's a mile up the road. Ew, woof, 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 jeez.
Yeah, there was, I've been needing to do, like, I've been saying this over and over again. It never happens. I guess I'm just totally passive aggressive, but doing, a segment, and maybe some of the other folks could help me out on the noise pollution issue. Talk about, the sound they make or that some dogs make. I was watching actually some videos a while back about those wind turbines they use to generate electricity. And one problem with those is the noise pollution, because you get this big giant like propeller going around. It makes a sound woof, 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 woof. And a lot of people have made like, wow, that's terrible. That's the worst. And that's why they have is all these restrictions on those things. Like you can't build it within 500 meters of somebody's house or something like that. So why don't we apply those restrictions to dogs? It's like, if you want to own a dog, you got to live, at least, a third of a mile from everyone else. How does that sound? That works, right?
That would be nice. Well,
That
I
would
live
be,
kind of close to some windmills, and it's more of a white noise hum, and constant. But yeah, them wind turbines. But I don't think it's as loud and abrupt as barking.
oh, right, right. Hey, your audio is kind of fading in and out. I don't know if it's a microphone issue, but
Oh,
most
no.
of the time you're coming through, I don't know what's up with that. But yeah, I tell people this isn't 60 minutes, but we try to, I guess, make make it as good as we can. But no worries, but just something to think about. I don't know if where you're holding the microphone or what. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, thanks for the comments you've made. But so with so you have a current neighbor with a yard barker?
Yeah, Malinois.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, I think one of those just killed a kid in Britain like this past week.
Anybody honest about it? I just don't think that pets are. It shouldn't be the molester dogs, the dogs of war, or any of that. That those aren't pets, German shepherds and all the bully breeds, and Malinois and whatever. I just those aren't pets.
Yeah, I took a crack a while back, and we're actually going to get into some, like dogs in public kind of things. But yeah, well, the thing is, it's very few people, and I mean like almost nobody, is well positioned to control something like that properly, to train it, control it, contain it. Almost nobody is. And a lot of those dogs are like, police dogs. And, you probably followed me. I get into police dog fails. It's like, as they use those Malinois quite a bit, and they'll just attack. Supposedly, this is some like well-trained police dog that's had tens of thousands of dollars in training. It'll just run off and attack a bystander or more than one. It's not uncommon. They're very unstable also. So I guess with that said, I guess no one is fit to own a dog like that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did a quick Google search because we talk about this sometimes. So at 300 meters, a wind turbine is like 40 decibels.
Oh, that's nothing. Because
Okay, yeah. And a
dog,
dog can bark up to 100 decibels.
I think more than that. I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Right.
it's like
So, okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
think 100
conservatively
is
100.
average. Yeah, 100 is
Okay.
average. Yeah.
So, and a reminder that the decibel scale is logarithmic. So every 10 decibels, right? Or like so 40 to 50 is 10 times louder,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
40
Mhm.
to 60 is 100 times louder, and
Yep.
so on. So, a dog bark is several orders of magnitude louder than like a wind turbine. Yet a wind turbine is like restricted because of noise complaints.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
anyways,
And it
just a quick reminder on how decibels work.
it really is like a white noise. It's kind of a. I don't see how anyone could complain about it unless, I don't know,
Maybe
I
it's a good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, I befuddled about that.
Yeah, well, maybe it's dog nutters like deflecting because, anytime somebody raises dog noise pollution, it's always something else
Uh,
that needs to be the focus. Like a lot of places, yeah, they're banning, say, leaf blowers because ostensibly, sometimes it's a minor reason is the air quality concerns, but a lot of it's the noise pollution. They complain that the guy next door is blowing off his driveway or whatever. And it's like, you got to be kidding. And you figure what? Even if all your neighbors use leaf blowers, that amounts to what? Maybe a half hour a week tops in season. But the dog barking for hours a day, that's not the problem. It's always something else. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe they're bashing the wind turbine noise pollution complaint is it's a deflection by dog people.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And you could do a whole call on just NextDawg, but it's that like somebody will come on and complain, oh, my neighbor's yappers. I thought I'd step outside and enjoy a nice warm sunny morning with a cup of coffee, but the yappers. And then every, everyone comes on, well, what are you supposed to do? Well, that means the dogs are being abused. Oh, blah, blah. It just goes on and on. Like, whatever the deal is, remedy it. And then some people say, well, get a shot collar, that'll teach them. Oh, those are so cruel. There's no solution to it.
Yeah. Well,
And
here's an
dogs
idea.
bark.
Get a shock collar for the owner. Then they'll shut the dog up.
Something's got to give. I don't know. I mean, I just can't. Just let me see another thing about, oh, the fireworks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my dog is a shaking bowl of jelly in the bathtub or it's under the bed. And it's like firecrackers go boom. That's what they do.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, because like the yappy little shithead all of a sudden has a problem with abrupt, loud noises. And that was never a problem before. Like you never heard that until a few years ago. Or maybe it was really like maybe 10, 12 years ago when this thing just went completely off the rails. They're like, oh no, ban fireworks. Fido doesn't like listening to them. It's like, yeah, we listen to fireworks, what, 2, 3 days a year? It's like with the leaf blowers. Yeah, we listen to fireworks 2 or 3 days a year. We listen to dogs bark 365 days a year. But it's the fireworks that are the problem. I think what needs to happen is there needs to be like a public meeting or some kind of referendum on this where we focus specifically on that issue. Like we're going to address dog noise pollution. So, and people bring solutions to the table. Is it barking tickets? Is it mandatory debark surgery? Is it dog-free communities? Et cetera, et cetera. What we're not going to do is deflect onto like squeaky hamster wheels and weed eaters and all this other picayune chicken shit that the dog people try to deflect onto. If I were holding that meeting, it's like anybody who deflects is not going to be part of the conversation. Yes, I'm censoring, boom, out. You think like squeaky hamster wheels are the problem? Fine. That's the Thursday meeting. You go off and solve that problem, right? We're going to solve this one. That's what needs to happen.
Yeah, but you see, like on NextDawg, I mean, I've been kicked off of it, put in a timeout box or whatever for making how dare she? You can't broach the subject. You cannot broach the subject. It does spill off into hamster wheels and leaf blowers and it's so ridiculous. You can't have a rational discussion about it. So I don't even see being able to bring it, to city council or whatever. You just can't have a rational discussion about it. And I think that's kind of where we're at. We're just like, it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, well, you'd have to. Yeah, I agree. Actually, it was interesting. I've mentioned this before, but last decade, my county had a noise summit where the county executives held, actually it was a series of public meetings that I didn't know about until after it had been concluded to address the problem of noise pollution in communities. I read this about it in the local paper. And of course, what was the number one complaint by far? Like what did almost everybody come to the table with. It was dog noise pollution, right? But the thing is that, and yeah, but you got to realize, Susie, that these nutters, even on NextDawg, they mobilize against that kind of stuff, right? I mean, you have like online brigading, but they do in real time also, because this was, in-person public meetings. And so people are coming to the table with all this other stuff like deflecting. They're like, well, what about garbage trucks? We're so sick of hearing those garbage trucks. Yeah, it's like you laugh because it's, first of all, talk about a false equivalence. Yeah, one, you hear it about a minute a week. And two, it's doing an important public service, right? So it's necessary because, yeah, we have noise pollution. If you live in a society, noise pollution is a thing, but there's trade-offs. Like, in other words, you only tolerate the noise pollution if there's some kind of countervailing benefit to it, like a trash truck collecting trash. So that's the trade-off. But yeah, if all they did was just like drive the truck up and down the street and bang the trash cans for no reason, yeah, you tell them to knock it off. So, but in any case, yeah, but that's the thing is you're thinking, okay, how could like a discussion like that be productive? You'd say, okay, we're going to address the issue of a dog, not even pet, dog noise pollution. What do we do? Anybody who deflects is kicked out. Similar to that, you probably heard me, I've referred to, the Selesky incident. There's actually in Maryland back in the 2000s. And it was about, real quick, young boy actually and his buddy are mauled by pit bulls. So the parents mobilized to get some laws changed. So they actually agitated to have pit bulls declared like inherently dangerous. The laws were, subsequently repealed, but what he said was, it was interesting when they had the public meetings, like at the local level, you had a lot of that. Like people would come in and they would deflect onto everything else. What about cars? What about guns? What about bears? What about, alligators? What about just, kids drowning in swimming pools and bathtubs and all this other stuff? They just deflected all over the place, among other things. And there was also the gratuitous accusations of like racism and Nazism and all that crap that you run into when you want to restrict dogs by breed. But when they got to the state level people were way more disciplined, right? So that's really where they gained traction. So maybe that's, worth looking into. But I wanted to get into a little later the economics of, like enforcing these laws. So let's move on a little bit. Just real quick, Sheepie, any change on your end with the hoarder neighbor?
No, nothing has changed. Situation is the same. I'm planning on I haven't seen or heard any goat sounds. I don't know if the goats are still back there. I want to grab my binoculars and try to see. I am that neighbor, yes. But no, I mean, I noticed the husband's vehicle was back. I just got back. I've been out of town for a few days this week. But I got in late last night and it looked like the husband's car's actually there. So it might be a good time to do what you said on our last call and try to talk to him and just be like, hey, uh, you know, there's a lot of noise and I'm concerned about the situation over here. Like, since we've never really spoken to him since he's usually gone,
Yep.
it might be an opportunity to talk to him because I have a feeling, just from what I've observed, that he's very unhappy with his living situation. So
Yeah, and you might want to remind them too, what they're doing is a tort. I mean, again, if they refuse to cure the problem, I mean, you have grounds for, I believe that it would be a case for private nuisance. Again, not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV, but just from my knowledge in this space, that's that's the case. I mean, it's up to you whether to pursue it or not. But sometimes, particularly like him, it's like maybe he's trying to keep his wife happy or whatever. But like maybe you don't have maybe not threaten them, but you just can kind of passively aggressive, way say, well, you know what you're doing is a tort and you could be sued over it. So you're not directly like, if you don't stop, I'm going to sue your ass off. That might not be a good idea. But I guess judges don't like that either. That's like, don't use the civil court system as a weapon, but you could, indicate that, because it might even be because, maybe I'm sure maybe some of the other neighbors are fed up with this also.
I would think
So,
so, because no one
yeah,
else has dogs. Like they came in, which kind of is an interesting question about like the total dog population, because maybe not every person owns a dog, but then you have one person in the neighborhood that owns more dogs than everyone else would combined.
yeah,
you know, there's not even 10 houses, and she's got like at least 10 dogs cycling in and out. So she's already come in with more dogs than like 100% of the neighbor, like the number of households. Does that make sense? I feel like I could
yeah.
have phrased it better, but
Yeah. And even, if they maybe even if some of them do have dogs, I'm sure like even some dog people, object to this. The problem with that is that I don't know, like you might have some other dog people saying, okay, this is totally unacceptable and it's a problem that needs to be solved. They won't actually do anything. It's almost like there's a pact between them to like not report it or to take any kind of real action. That's what I've,
yeah.
you know.
The
I
only
think,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I think you'd be able to get a feel in talking to him, like maybe he's like, ugh, and just throws his hands up in the air, like, I can do, or whatever. You might be able to figure out that, yeah, he's kind of, I don't know, pinned in or up against the wall and just doesn't know what to do about it and is frustrated and why he's not there. Probably like lives on base or whatever, just to not be there.
I know, exactly. I always I read Tales from the Doghouse pretty frequently, and I'm always like looking for any sign that like that guy's the one posting. Like my crazy wife keeps adopting these, fostering all these dogs. I'm in the military, and I'm like, oh, that's my neighbor.
Yeah.
Did you catch his name when you looked at the tax site?
Yeah, I did. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but
Because I kind of look at, does he have a Facebook, or then is, are they friends, the husband and wife, and then is she involved with all these different dog rescues? You can usually see that stuff. I'm not on Facebook. I think it's just toxic and a waste of time. But
Yeah.
um, I mean, it's like I don't know. It's next door, but it's your family, and then people you went to high school with, and it's awful. It's like no one no one grew up. I graduated a long, long time ago, man.
That's what you find. It's like the the cool kids still think they're cool, even though they're like
Yes.
working in Home Depot or whatever. It's like, dude, you're really not cool anymore. I hate to break it to you, but
yeah,
Yeah, the high
Facebook's
school
often
glory fog. It's done.
yeah, it's definitely giving peaked in high school a lot of the time.
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
But no, I did do a little bit of a deep dive, I guess you could say. They both have Facebook pages. That's how I figured out that she is involved in like fostering or whatever. Um, and funny, one time she made a post on the local page like, "Can anyone please like help me mow my lawn?" Because she the yard had gotten like 3 feet tall of just like weeds, and like they didn't mow like more than a couple times all summer, and they had to have a crew come out over like a couple days to get it under control. So yeah, they do have a Facebook presence. Actually,
Like
I don't think. Oh, go ahead.
some of the some of the groups that she would be in, and then what they're posting, you know, I don't know. When I was on Facebook, I know I got a lot of cat rescue stuff, and it was, you know, depressing.
Right.
And it's like they're swapping, and oh, death row dogs, let's pull this one out because it's due for euthanization and blah blah blah, you know.
It only
and then they'll
killed a
get
couple of kids. You know, he needs a second chance, or I mean, or a 10th chance, or however many chances they've got.
oh
Right?
zero tolerance. Just
Yep.
if it snaps at the air, it's gone, you know. They're not precious gems. There are literally too many of them. Kind of reminds me of the Monty Python song, every sperm is precious.
That's right. Every sperm is sacred. Yeah. We were actually howling over. We were talking about bad speak, and there was a clip from Life of Brian. You know, where they're going to stone somebody for, you know, speaking the name of God. You know, for saying Jehovah. But then the ceremony master winds up saying it by accident, so they drop a boulder on him. You know, yeah, they're funny. But yeah, they act like they're so. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with my 10 commandments of dog, but one of them is that the dog life is sacred. It's sacred.
Yeah.
It's not just valuable, it's sacred. You have to like spare the life of each and every dog, and it's spare no expense. You know, go to whatever lengths you need to do to keep them alive. So I actually wanted to delve into that also. But in any case, yeah, Sheepie, I hope you get some traction on that. I mean, you know, approaching him, I think you could just talk to him, but I would say if you know, if that doesn't yield results, you could, you know, drop a desist letter in their lap. You might want to have an attorney write that, but I could give you some pointers on how to. The one I sent was very effective because it's a problem that needs to be solved. I mean, you got the whole thing. You get the dog noise pollution, you got dog waste, and you've also got a pretty serious potential dangerous dog problem because you've got literally a pack of pit bulls over there that's very likely may have bite histories. Like they may be known dangerous dogs trafficked in from other jurisdictions. I think we were talking about that last time or the time before.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds
exactly.
like hell.
Yeah, dog hell. Hey, I wanted to move on because actually I have a story to share. You know, talk about why people are in this space. Well, we're all a bunch of deranged and delusional moons, right? Why we get into the space and stay in it. And usually it's not just one thing either. So as folks know, you know, I hike quite a bit. And a week ago today, I was out at a state forest. I was hiking alone. And I had some dog encounters. So I encountered a purebred lab that was not an issue. And I also encountered two very aggressive pit bulls, and the not the same time. So the first encounter, so I'm hiking along, and there's this overlook area, right? It was a fairly decent sized group of people, maybe 8-9 people. One of them had a pit bull on a leash, and it was interesting how the dog was restrained. It actually had a harness. And the leash, I don't know if it was actually a leash or not, but it was, it looked like mountaineering cord, you know, like mountain climbers would use, mountain climbing rope. So when I got close, the dog, like, you know, again, it snapped. It started growling, barking really aggressively at me. And then it tried to leap. It tried to jump on me. But the owner or whoever was restraining is this fairly burly guy. So the dog jumps, and this guy yanks back on that rope, and he actually pulled the dog over backwards, right? So he pulls back, the dog's hind legs come out from under him, and boom, it lands on its back. Like, holy shit. I didn't like say anything. And, you know, as people know, when I hike, I, you know, conceal carry a handgun. And we're going to talk about that also. It's one of these. So so that was encounter number one. And I walked by, but even as the dog got back up, started aggressively barking at me. I'm giving it a wide berth, growling, snarling, like showing teeth. Now, what's interesting about that is that we say this often. If that had been expressed any other way, it would be a crime, right? Like if he'd brandished a weapon. And it was interesting how he pulled the dog back, like, because I keep the pistol, it's inside the belt holster because it's, concealed. But he could see I was kind of like reaching for something. So maybe that was an extra incentive to control the dog. So that was encounter number one. So after I walked past them and I was out of line of sight of everybody, I took the pistol out of the holster and put it in my right jacket. I was wearing a jacket. It was a bit chilly out. So I put it, in the front right jacket pocket so I could access it a little easier, because pulling from inside the belt is a little awkward. So I'm like, great, and I'm glad at that point the GF wasn't with me, because she would have just had a meltdown. It really shook me up also. So fast forward another hour, and I see another group. It's 3 people. They have a pit bull that's leashed or roped similarly. It's got a harness, different dog, similar harness, same kind of like mountaineering type rope leash. That dog didn't try to jump on me, but it was saying like it barked really, excuse me, really aggressively, snarling. So again, I've got my hand. Yeah, it's like the joke where somebody's, they got their finger pointing like inside their jacket or their coat. So I've got my hand inside there, and I'm actually holding, holy shit. So that, but again, it was the same thing. Like the man holding the leash, he was sufficiently, the leashing arrangement was sufficient to keep the dog under control, but that dog would have attacked me also. So I'm like, holy shit, 2 encounters like that in one day. And I was just, stunned. I was like, holy crap, this situation is totally out of control. So I got to tell people, you don't have to. Well, again, nobody's in this place due to some abstraction. It's one reason is situations like that, or just walking down the street, right? They charge at the end of the rope or the chain, and that the dog would bite if it could most of the time. I mean, it's almost a sure thing. If those dogs had been off leash, at least one of them would have attacked me. I mean, it's almost a sure thing. And I would have been forced to shoot it, which is really not something I want to do. I'm not some gun-slinging loon, believe it or not. And most of the time, I don't carry. I carry in the woods because of dogs, not other hikers, not wildlife, dogs, because I've had a shitload of experiences like this in my, outdoor, adventures over the years. That's why I started carrying. Okay, and make the point again, it's a dog problem, because every animal, and that includes 2-legged animals, that has behaved dangerously towards me in the woods has been a dog. Most of them have been pit bulls, although there's been other dogs too. I've had a couple of border collies try to take a chunk out of me. So it's not strictly a pit bull problem, but it's a dog problem. Dog. So, and part of it was, see, this is a state forest. Like if it was a state park, they always have at least one park ranger on duty. I would have reported it, but these state forests really don't have staff on site. I'm actually thinking of writing them a letter. I don't know what good that's going to do. Actually, but I have gotten traction approaching our state parks director. They put some limits on dogs in campgrounds, so that was a plus. Like, that worked. But this is just, completely crazy. It's funny, and that's what I wanted to segue into some of these like anti-mutt YouTubers, like that Harmful Opinions dipshit and Penguins Zero and Jack's Fools and so forth. But they're like, hey, 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 hey. But this is a big problem, and it's everywhere. But what they would say is, or even some of these other concern trolls, instead of focusing on dogs, why don't you just do something you enjoy? Yeah, that's something I enjoy, and that's threatened by dogs. Like, you literally can't do anything without it being disrupted by these asshole dog people and their shit mutts. It's ridiculous. Sorry, you were going to say something. Rant over. Well, for now.
Oh, for me, I used to ride my bike around here, like 13-mile loop, kind of off to the horse. I live close to horse people in an orange grove and around. I come up on the same pit bull twice. I saw it before it saw me, and I booked it. I didn't even look, and I thought, because it was just isolated enough area where maybe no one would hear me scream or whatever. Ran up on a guy on his driveway in a neighborhood sitting with his pit bull unleashed under his chair, and he kind of gave me a look, and I wanted to flip him off, but I thought, no, he'll sick the dog on me if I do that. Just smug.
Oh yeah.
POS. And then I came up around on another one, and this thing is charging full speeds, little kids, like half a block away, and it's charging, toward the owner, but toward me, and they're the kids are calling it back and everything. And it's like, this is kind of like foreshadowing, like, this is not safe for me to do.
Yeah.
And they took that form of exercise away from me. It's not cool. You just can't avoid them, and they say, oh, echo chamber, and it's like, it's only balancing the amount of what we have to put up with.
Yeah.
Either we go online and read about it, or we step outside and woof 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 and all this. It's not an echo chamber. It's just it's balancing the nuttery.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not an echo chamber in the sense that, well, first of all, we get trolled quite a bit. Like, particularly if you read like the canine comments section, some of those are just unbelievable. And I guess, he leaves them up because those people, like IHD says, they make our points for us quite often, and that they do, but we're also, you're constantly, inundated with pro-dog propaganda, the whole usual stuff. Even like I said, in your Nextdoor feed, I had, let me see if I can bring this up, because I posted this to the Discord yesterday. Where is that? Here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to open in browser. Maybe I'll bring this up and I'll put this in the, you guys can see my screen, right? I got a screen full of pit bulls here.
Yep.
Yeah,
you can see that. Okay, let's see what we got here. Yeah, this was funny. This is from my Nextdoor feed. Really, it should be called NextDawg or Dog Door. And even some of the other posters on my feed have said that. Like, let's just say this is just well, he said it was a pet sub, because, yeah, maybe 3% of the time it's a cat or some other animal, but really it's a dog site. Because even if they're not talking about stuff like this, there's multiple people on my feed that just spam like dog photos. Look at this cute doggy, and look at that cute doggy, and look at this other cute doggy. And here's some. So, we're constantly inundated with this stuff. Like, a true echo chamber would be, okay, we seal ourselves off from the rest of the world and just talk to each other. We don't consume any media, or we're just going to live on we're going to create a colony on Mars or something and completely cut ourselves off from Earth. That would be a real echo chamber. But this is what came up. This was funny because this was somebody, I wonder if I could recommend a local vet that will not charge an arm and a leg, because the arm and the leg get taken by the pit bull, for a spay and partial amputation of a tail. She has happy tail. Okay, and this other trying to charge $450 for the spay and $2,000 for the tail, and blah blah blah. And we're still recovering financially from our last pup who had cancer, and we took this sweet girl to keep her from ending up in shelters. It's probably a pit or a pit mix, but now we're way over our heads with everything. So basically, their last dog almost bankrupted them, and now this dog is. But it was interesting was, and I didn't capture the comments, but this had, I mean, within hours had 75 plus comments, and most of them were bashing her. They're like, how dare you like amputate your dog's tail? That's cruel. That's horrible. That's terrible. You're just doing that for your own convenience. And, you know, if you know what happy tail is, it's, again, it's another one of those passive aggressive like euphemisms that dog people like to use, or dog apologists, because the dog will compulsively, you know, swing its tail back and forth. You know, they'll bash it against solid objects like door frames or whatever until it's broken and bloody, like until the bone is shattered and the flesh is destroyed. And that can create a fatal infection, like gangrene can set in from that. So, yeah, often the tail has to be amputated just to save the dog's life. But all these dog worshiping moans are saying, oh, that's cruel. That's horrible. How can you do that for your own, you know, convenience? And you're not a good dog mom and all this stuff. And it's like, it's interesting when they set up the circular firing squad and all just start like shooting at each other. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, NextDawg is a treasure trove. It's depressing. It's depressing. It's like, oh my God, we're just outnumbered, so outnumbered. This morning there was a guy trying to rehome a 1-year-old German Shepherd that already looks like it's like 100 pounds or whatever. And oh, you're so cruel. Dogs are for life. You would get rid of your kid. Oh, you know. And a couple of voices of reason are like, well, good for you for recognizing that you're in over your head and you need to rehome it. And
Yep.
It's nuts, man. It's nuts. They shame you so hard.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's think of that. Sorry to like butt back in, but you know, that's a good thing. You know, if you have somebody, like if you know a friend or know somebody who's like, yeah, I'm going to get a dog and it's going to be, you know, awesome. But the thing is, you got to realize, see, by doing so, you're joining a cult, right? And if you don't adhere to cult standards, they're going to like eat you for breakfast, like in that case, right? Or this one here that's up on the screen. Because it is, yeah, they turn, though, because again, and yeah, you know, like a rational dog or pet owner really would, you know, give it up if they can't take care of it. If it's anything else, then everybody's like, yeah, I mean, maybe it's sad, but it's the right thing to do. But not with these people. Like, yeah, dogs for life. Like you can never get rid of it no matter what, right? And people, they make themselves homeless over this stuff. I mean,
yeah. And there's another recent one where a little, like an 11-year-old girl was walking her poodle, and a Dogo Argentino and a pit bull came and just ripped the little poodle. It's gone. And, you know, the little girl didn't get hurt too bad except for running away because they were, and all the people, the dog should not be euthanized because it's not the dogs, it's the owners, you know. And I've come in there and tried to say some, you know, rational things. I get a couple of likes, like people like I agree or like, you know. And I said we have a dog problem in this country, in this state, in this town. You know, it's getting out of hand. It's ridiculous, you know.
Yep.
And very few like it, and very few are brave enough to speak out. But I think once that some brave person will come and speak out on it, you get a couple more. But for the most part, if it's something too hard of a truth bomb, they'll just mass report you and you'll
Yep.
get put in timeout.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that, more people agree with us than we think. But the thing is, yeah, more people don't speak out, even anonymously, because it's, well, first of all, like you indicated that, a lot of people, they get into this space and they think they're alone because all they hear is positive stuff about dogs. Like dogs are these pure and perfect fur angels sent from heaven. Dog owners are the most wonderful people on earth. You can't go wrong with a dog. Everybody should have one. And there's just these absolutely carefree best friends that are only going to make your life better. But then somebody, even, whether they're a dog owner or not, realizes that that's not the truth, right? They're very high maintenance. They're prone to lots of offensive behaviors. And it's just a matter of fact thing. I mean, many animals are, although dogs, take it to a whole new level, like particularly with the aggression towards humans. But I think way more people agree with us than we think or is readily apparent. But it's just that it's so politically incorrect. That's the point. But it may, not be, if you're familiar with the Overton window concept, I've noticed that window has shifted some. I mean, I've been in and out of the space for a while, but it's shifted some, you know, um, even on like a dozen years ago, even on spaces that were, I guess, ostensibly not necessarily anti-dog, but critical of, say, some aspect of dogs in society, right? Like, say, the header article is about dog noise pollution. And I would post something like, well, maybe owning a dog isn't for everybody, right? Boom, deleted. Gone. Now you can say stuff like that, particularly, if the header is something that's at least mildly critical of dogs in society. So, but I think there's way more people who agree with us than we think, and many of them may be dog people, because it wasn't U.S. News and World Report or something. There was a big news article. It's something like 54% of dog owners actually regretted getting the dog. I'm thinking, well, there's some traction to be gained there, perhaps. But I think he's thinking, okay, why don't those people get rid of the dogs? But just like you brought up, is that, people who do that are relentlessly, bullied and shamed and ostracized for doing so.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I have a kind of similar example of that not too long ago. I'm on a fitness related subreddit, like a women's fitness, and someone posted this. I guess she's like an influencer, like a fitness influencer, and she made a post on like Instagram and was like, we found out we're pregnant, and um I have these two dogs that I got. They were like two little Pomeranian type, like small dogs. And she was like, with the pregnancy and everything else, I just couldn't give them like the amount of attention and care that they needed. So I rehomed them to like a loving home, and like nothing close to like anti-dog or anything like that. Like she literally did the thing that you would think is like universally seen as the responsible move. Like she didn't just dump them or like take them to like be euthanized or whatever.
Yeah.
And the comments were like almost 50-50, which was kind of like promising, like things are shifting a little bit, because a lot of the comments were like, what does this even have to do with fitness? Why is this being posted here? Like, this doesn't matter. Nothing to do with
Well,
our
yeah, but a
topic.
lot of it, if it were pro dog, then it would be fine, right?
Right. Yeah. And then, uh, a lot of comments were like, well, this is the responsible thing to do. Having a kid is much more important than having dogs. And then, of course, there was like 200 replies to like, how dare you, you heartless person, like dogs are forever. What is she just going to get rid of her kids if it's too hard to take care of them and stuff like. So there was the typical responses, but I was a little bit, I was happy to see that it was a little bit less like of what you would normally expect. Like the dog
Yep.
nuttery was a little bit muted compared to. So I do think, to your point, that there is somewhat of a shift to the Overton window. Like people feel a little bit more comfortable saying things like, well, actually, her having a baby, is a lot more important than her having these dogs. And if she can't do both, then she should get rid of the dogs. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It was kind of I was a little bit happy to see at least a pretty large proportion of the comments were like reasonable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the case with that too is it's just getting worse. It's just it, the dog problems, in the stores everywhere. Just it's it's getting worse. So more people are feeling brave to come out and say something about it too. It's just it's nuts, man. It's
Yeah. Well, I think
it's like
there's
a
some
surreal bad movie or something.
yeah, some tipping point. There has to be a tipping point for this. Maybe
Yeah.
we're not quite there yet. It's always interesting you talk about, and sometimes I've likened this to like an economic bubble or some kind of social mania, although those really aren't. I know like last time, like Sheepie, you and I were discussing, or maybe it was a time before, right? Like bad allegories. Like this is its own thing, right? It's not really comparable to or directly comparable to anything else. But I think it's still, though, I think that it's some, there has to be a tipping point reached at some point, right? And who knows, maybe like society needs to collapse and be like reconstituted, because some of these problems are, if they get much worse, we're not going to be able to function as a society, right? Does everybody have to stay home and hide under their bed to avoid stray dogs? Like what kind of, like, again, the whole economy would collapse, mass starvation. That's not, that's, well, that if that happens, like that brings down dog culture with it, because that's a product of our society, of our culture. Hopefully it won't get that bad. I know like IHD's actually posted a couple of videos about, loose dogs in this one neighborhood. And there's like this pack of 24 dogs. They, attack people, and they're running loose everywhere, and they're running in the road. They're like tying up traffic. It's like, how much worse does that have to get before people just say enough? We're done. Okay, I wouldn't even care. It's like, you don't like it, we're gonna like revert to rule 223 or whatever. Fine, if that's the solution.
Yeah, that was absolutely wild. They were like interviewing a woman, and her legs, did you see? Like her
Yep.
legs were
Yeah.
covered. It looked like she'd like rolled down like a gravel mountainside or something. Like
Yeah.
that's from like walking outside to check your mail. You come back in and you're like going to die of like infection because both of your legs are just like covered in bites and like gashes and stuff. This is like worse than like third world levels of insanity with
Oh
the
yeah.
dogs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a post on Nextdoor about 10, and they weren't 10 loose dogs somewhere nearby. It got taken down because, people started saying, well, that's dangerous and they need to be rounded up and euthanized and this and that. I've commented on things like, well, I don't like the idea of a bunch of loose high prey drive dogs out and about, and I get laughing emojis and stuff. And then I say, can someone please tell me what is funny about, a dog mauling another living thing? I'd like to hear it,
Yeah. Well, it's a horror movie scenario. It's almost like, I mean, yeah, what are we going to be living in? It's like say in The Walking Dead, where they take the housing development and they build like a 15-foot steel wall around it to keep the zombies out. Like, is that how we're going to have to live? Is that funny? I wanted to actually talk about that aspect of it, particularly getting into. We can kind of stay on this topic a little bit, but I think Sheepie, did you put out a segment on, apparently is another anti-Mutt YouTuber mocking us, called Harmful Opinions? Was that you?
That was Kanan. I did one on
Okay.
some lady called like Moth Cub. I think she
Oh,
had she still had a lot of subs. It was like less than both Jack's films and Harmful Opinions. She has around like 20K. I think that one didn't get a lot of traction, but yeah, it was the same exact thing. Like all they do is like read a post and then like laugh. And then
yeah,
Rodney made such a great point about like peak irony. Like we've just reached this point where everything has to be like not unserious and like sarcastic, and like the only rebuttal is like make a silly face and like laugh about it, which is
yeah.
absolutely wild when you're talking about people getting like mauled to death. Like the
Yeah.
Harmful Opinions guy in his video, he posts a picture of the Bernard family before the kids were mauled to death and laughs at
Oh,
like
yeah.
while that picture is on the screen. And I'm just like, you are a
That
ghoul.
guy, that I would totally punch that guy in the face. 100%. It would be worth going to jail over. That guy totally needs a punch in the face, because he went on, I remember that. And he went on to, and I guess he was critiquing Kanon, and Kanon had made a point about dogs, like fake service dogs, urinating and defecating inside of grocery stores. He's like, well, if you don't like a dog taking a dump in your grocery store, just go to another one. Ha, 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 ha. It's like, look, dummy. Well, first of all, they're everywhere, right? And the other thing is like, okay, your point is that live animals urinating and defecating inside of food establishments, that's somehow acceptable? Is that the point he's trying to make? No, that's the thing, because that is totally unacceptable. It can never happen. I mean, seriously, just once should be enough to ban them permanently. And I don't care if they claim, well, it's some PTSD like alert. I don't give a shit. You know what? Fuck those fake service dog people, which is like 99.99% of them. But yeah, that's totally unacceptable. Period. They should, and it's not a joke. And you know what? Yeah, if these idiots want to just drown in dog filth, fine. They need to go off by themselves somewhere and do that. They can go, like, do laps around that doggy cesspool and leave the rest of us out of it. Moreover, I think Harmful Opinions is in UK, so maybe it's different over there. But yeah, dogs in grocery stores are illegal as per federal, state, and local health codes. The problem is the ADA creates a loophole basically for everybody, because all you got to do is say, yep, service dog, and you're in. So, that guy, I was reading some of the other commenters made some good points that, there's one called, I think it was called Hypothesis, but they made the point that, yeah, that whole, I mean, they're not doing comedy. I mean, I get compliments because I can be funny. Many of the guests of many of these shows do have comedic entertainment value, but we're actually doing real comedy. Maybe it's amateur comedy, but real comedy. But like pointing a finger at somebody and laughing is not comedy. What it is it's facetious. It's totally like, frivolous and inappropriate. They're like, you don't like slipping in puddles of dog urine in Kroger? Oh, the dogs killed both kids? Who would be afraid of a dog after that? It's totally inappropriate. It's not funny. Okay, it's not like good comedy like that Dave Chappelle skit or the Monty Python movies. That's real comedy, and there's some of that on here too. What they're doing, it's not entertaining, it's not comedy, it's totally inappropriate, and there's no place for it in civil society. Well, kind of like the dogs themselves. Somebody else made the point, and I wanted to touch on this also, is what those people are doing. And maybe it kind of shows a sign of where we are with this in terms of Overton window stuff, is that maybe, more people are speaking out about this stuff, and the dog cultists are getting nervous, right? Like the natives are getting restless, in other words. And what they're doing is, again, it's just a thesis, but again, like this harmful opinion and Jack Fools and the Penguin Zero guy, is they're trying to reassure their audience. They're saying, look, dog people, none of these folks, meaning us, none of them have anything useful to say. They're all either nuts or mentally deficient. Nothing they say makes any sense. They have no reason to be in the space, period. Okay, so, and that's what they do, is it is mock. It's like, oh, you almost got attacked by two pit bulls hiking. Doesn't he have anything better to do? But it's supposed to be reassuring to the dog people, if that makes any sense. I thought it was an interesting idea, at least.
Yeah, I do. I hadn't thought of it like that, but that actually is a good point. It's like, it makes them nervous to see people pushing back on them, and they're only the only response they can come up with is to try to like make us look insane or mock and laugh at us, because they don't actually have a rebuttal. But it does kind of give like nervous laughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the best they got too. That's about like 13-year-old boy stuff, like the Simpsons character.
Yep. I don't know, it was even probably more like 7 years old, but yeah, the nervous laughter, and yeah, they're trying to reassure themselves and each other that none of us have anything to do. But it even goes back to some of the the real action, like Sheepie in your case. Like, they can play barking dog bingo until hell freezes over, but you guys probably have a pretty solid case for a private nuisance lawsuit. And really, that's the only thing that matters. Like, yeah, they'll go on there and they'll excuse barking dogs all day and night, but like under our legal system, that's a tort. And most people don't know that. It's like, don't listen to any of the barking dog bingo. Dogs bark, it's what they do, and just get used to it. Or why don't you wear earplugs? Blah, blah, blah. Forget about that. It's all BS. The only thing that matters is that's a tort, and they can be sued over it. And there's other actions that can be taken also. And they also need to respect the fact that, the point I make is, really the reason we have this problem is because dogs and dog owners are granted all kinds of special privileges and powers and protections that really nobody else has. No other pet owner has, nobody, period. Like, if these things are expressed any other way, boom, gone. But if you do it with a dog, it's okay. But the thing is, they need to realize, everybody, even people in our spaces, that is totally arbitrary. Like, there's no reason that the owners of dogs that maul and kill can't go to prison for 20 years. Because if those things were expressed any other way, that's what would happen. There's no reason we can't forget about banning pit bulls. There is absolutely no reason that we can't, technically no reason. We can't ban every dog over 20 pounds. Why? Well, that's the biggest cat you can have. So let's apply that rule to dog. Those kind of things happen all the time. The only reason it hasn't is because of all these special protections they have that are totally arbitrary. They serve no purpose, and they can be, boom, repealed. They can get the rug pulled out from them at any time. Maybe now's not the time, but there's a lot of things we can do. I wanted to segue into some public policy stuff. I don't know if either of you had anything to say about my foaming at the mouth rant there.
I mean, all I was gonna say is they'll find out that snarky, like hyena laughter isn't a legal defense. So
Well,
Yeah.
and yeah, I oh, whoops, am I? No, I am not muted. Okay, I just don't get how it's so all prevailing. How it's, I don't know. It's like a mass psychosis formation.
Yep. Yep.
It,
Well,
I don't know. Like a cult. It's almost impenetrable. Like I don't know. I'm at a loss for words.
yeah,
Never
it
mind.
does. It is. Well, that was that. Well, I guess Sheepie was the first person to bring the thought or the concept to the table, but the brood parasite thesis, and again, that I mean, the dogs may not meet the precise scientific taxonomic definition of such a thing, but they're definitely, I think, for practical purposes, they are, because dogs have evolved the ability to exploit the nurturing instincts in humans. And some people are more resistant to it than others, but I think that probably suffices as a root cause better than anything else. Certainly any other economic or political theory. I mean, it's sort of spilled out into these other areas, but I think, it's interesting when you hear, like the nervous hyena laughter. Maybe they are. Maybe they are getting scared, and maybe they realize that all these benefits, all these protections they enjoy can be, that rug can be pulled out from under them anytime, like, for example, that's what I want to get into was some public policy stuff. Where was that? Because well, I don't know if you folks are familiar with this pet rescue exposed Reddit. Now, I know that this is not a an anti-dog sub. Mostly it's to expose various, scams and scandals in the pet rescue industry, if you will. Note that, in this case, as always, like pet almost always means dog. It was funny. There was a cat rescue scam that came up once, and I was like, I wonder what the nature of that is. Well, the nature of the scandal is that money that was, earmarked or meant to sustain cats was being redirected to dogs, and not just any dog, but pit bulls. So I'm thinking, yeah, think of the irony of that. But it was interesting I read this post, and I don't know why this wound up in Pet Rescue Exposed, because this would be more like a dog free type Reddit. So this vet is having a nervous breakdown over the situation involving dogs in her jurisdiction. It's a rural county, and they don't have animal control, and the sheriff doesn't give a shit. So here's what's interesting. I wanted to get into this and kind of so I said, I first call of the weekend was a gunshot dog. However, not too unusual. However, I walked in my small rural clinic alone with the owner and a very large, very aggressive, intact male Cane Corso type dog. After the dog had pushed me into a wall and I barely escaped, out of the exam room door was revealed that the animal was shot by local law enforcement for attacking people. Law enforcement had then told the owners to take it to a vet to be put down. Now, of course, they didn't communicate that order. I guess it was just an informal order, I guess. No communication with any veterinarians. The owners chose not to euthanize the dog. Okay. And the dog is frequently at large, on, I guess, Wallowa Roaming Pets is their local website. So then 2 a.m., my phone rang about a different dog. The people on the other end were frantic, crying, panicked. I could hear the dog snarling and busting against the door in the background. The dog had had a seizure and turned on the family with rabid-like ferocity. They called 911 and local law enforcement declined to respond. The adults of the family were trapped in their room, and their 2 children trapped in the room on the other side of the house. That's why it's a good idea to have a stash guns. Now, this was no little bark machine. It was a 100-pound male Shepherd Bully breed mix. Now, there's a winning combination. So, long story short, after several calls to dispatch, it became clear I was the only person that would be willing to help this family. I loaded my 9mm and crawled through their window with my rabies pole and a bark of narcotics. Okay, so, and this goes on and on, but this is okay. Well, what do I do? The people paid by our tax dollars to provide public protection are not coming. Well, they're not coming because, again, there's a lot of protection for this thing, but very little from it. Probably either the cops in question are probably dog nutters who, subscribe to the 10 Commandments. These are, sacred animals that can't be harmed. You wonder with this other one, though, with this first one, it's like, okay, the cops shot the dog. Then they say, why not just, but it survived. Why not just pull the trigger again? Like, why not just put it down right there? Like, why loop a veterinarian into it? So, and probably because they probably knew the owner was not going to have the dog put down. But anyway, to provide public protection are not coming. They're not doing so. Do I tell the family to wait it out and hope it doesn't kill or maul any of them in the meantime? I know we've covered cases where, vicious dogs have broken through multiple interior doors of homes to get at people. That happened. There was a baby that was killed a month or 2 ago, where the dogs broke through the bedroom door, and then the bedroom had an attached bathroom. They broke through the bathroom door to kill a baby that was being babysat by a 13-year-old. So, okay, so this kind of gets, what's interesting is that, there's actually veterinarians. We got veterinarians, ex-vets, various animal care people that have gotten out of the space, or maybe they're still vets, but they don't treat dogs. They've gotten out of the space because of dangerous dogs, rage monster owners. So if one of those people is listening, or if you know anyone like that, I'd love to have a conversation with some of those people. So anyway, too, was like, probably she wound up like shooting the dog. But this comment is like, why is there not more protection from these things? And the answer is that our authorities have been taken over by, they're all like they've been absorbed into the Mutt matrix. And that's a difficult problem to solve. But what actually, I was actually thinking about Rodney, because he and I often talk about public policy and, what we can do to change it. So it's interesting I made this, because usually the answer is a lot of rural areas don't have animal control, right? But it's voted down locally because the funding for even one salaried officer has to come from somewhere. Now, I think this is another one of those like deflections. They say, okay, we can't have effective dog control, because that's what it is, because it's too expensive, right? I guess it's like controlling loose mutts is somehow equivalent to like sending a man to Mars or something. Oh, it's too expensive. We can't do it. So, my thought was we could have, we could, in theory, this could be revenue neutral, or perhaps even earn a profit. Okay, because I know that the dog people are going to flip out. They have to pay fees, fines, and taxes. But it's way past time for dog owners to pay their fair share. So if you read down, this person answered with a lot of, passive aggressive stuff, right? Well, it's just a money pit, and, they levy fines and fees, but they don't pay them. So it's like, why should we write citations when they're not going to pay them, or have a registration requirement when they're not going to adhere? Well, you know what? If they don't pay the taxes, you go after them. And then they'll say, well, it's not worth going after somebody for $50. Fine, make it $1,000. Is it worth it to go after them now? I mean, look, we pay taxes, fees, and fines on everything, except this apparently. So, but I bring this up because you're going to hear that a lot. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, you know what? Like rounding up, like in that IHD video, it's just rounding them up. It's just too expensive. We can't do it. Well, you know what the answer is then? Let's say that is the case. You know what the answer is? You know what the answer? That's the answer. That is how you control them. Okay. That is, I would say, like, Ruger is the animal control agency of last resort. Now, these things are protected. Currently, culling these things is illegal as hell. Shit, even shooting in self-defense or stabbing, or probably any use of force against the four-legged Jehovah is, treated, in a very, very serious matter. But that's arbitrary also. Right. And what really burns me about this, we get, I don't know, where the hell is it? Where was it? Oh, yeah, here. That, they say it's too expensive, but really, again, that's a passive aggressive deflection. Like if somebody goes to you and says, okay, you work for them or you're a contractor, say, oh, I need you to do this. You can say, okay, that's going to cost this much, or I need these resources to get that done. That's the answer. You don't just blow it off and say, too expensive. What that indicates is that what they're saying is that we don't want it done. We're perfectly fine with this pack of dogs terrorizing the neighborhood because they're dogs first people, and the needs of the dogs always come first to them. Okay, but that's just a question of priority. Many times on here we've gone into what do they spend on dogs, right? So I put this, actually posted this to the Discord, right? So first of all, it could be revenue neutral or earn a profit. But at the end of the day, this is a profound human health and safety issue. The state, meaning the government, has an interest in it, and revenue neutrality or profitability is not required. So if you need to do something, it requires funding. Well, first of all, you actually need, agents, you need staff that take their duties seriously first, right? But you say, okay, you can do a couple of things. You can raise revenue, right? You can tax them and fine them, which is what we should do. Or you could take the money out of something else. Well, what else? Because that's the thing is when they need something, protection or something for the dog, they have nothing but money. All of a sudden, there's more cash than Elon Musk after a winning streak in Vegas, right? There's plenty of money for what? Dog parks, endless expansions of public housing for dogs, dog shelters, all sorts of dogs and public school initiatives. How about this? Arresting, prosecuting, and incarcerating anyone who uses violence against a dog, like that guy in New Jersey who's facing 10 plus years for shooting the pit bull that mauled his wife. What does that cost? What is it going to cost to arrest him, prosecute him, and incarcerate him? Why do these geniuses, why isn't this person complaining about that? If they're all, that's what's funny is all of a sudden they're this uber like economic conservative that wants to squeeze every nickel of public money until it screams. Why aren't they taking issue with that? Like, again, that's expensive. Okay, we've also got this, okay, paying endless lawsuits related to canine misbehavior, right? That kind of thing, attacking random people that constantly get sued. There was somebody I was talking to privately who, the commenter on the Reds, who's a paralegal for a law firm that represents their city's police department. And again, that cities get sued over these canines all the time, whether it's like random attacks, Fourth or Eighth Amendment violations, whatever. So that's a money pit. So why do we take, well, we keep going. So you've got paying endless lawsuits related to the gross negligence of animal control and related authorities. So I'm saying like, and there's a lot of examples of this. Clonda Ritchie's estate sued the city of Dayton and won a $3.5 million settlement due to their negligence in dealing with her neighbor's dogs that killed her. Where does the money for all this stuff? Or here's another one I like, attributing due process rights to dogs, right? Or this one, the endless adjudication of dangerous dogs. You know, because we were talking about it, you know, Dexter, that's Annie Hornish's dog. And the just endless trials, hearings, mediations, motions, just to keep a dog alive. Where does the money for that come from? So you think, okay, we need effective animal control. How do we fund it? Well, you could go after the dog owners, which would be the right thing to do. And all these things are not mutually exclusive. The other thing we can do is stop funding all this other shit. Like Rodney was talking about, I think it's in his jurisdiction. They've got their dog shelter is wildly overcrowded. So they're spending $4.3 million to expand it. Why? Because of no-kill policies. So what you could do is, how much cheaper would it be if we just got rid, instead of warehousing these things forever, just give them the needle. So, but that's the problem this way, and you're going to hear this a lot, is they're going to say, oh, that's too expensive. It's like, really? But none of this other stuff is. It's part of their, you know, hypocrisy and disgusting double standards. You know what? You know, extract as much as you can from the dog owners. You know, yeah, if they don't pay their fines, you know what you do? You take out a lien and then execute on it. You tow their fucking car away, or dox their paycheck, or whatever, or what any creditor can do, because we get into in lawsuits. You can do stuff like that. It can get really ugly. So yeah, you extract whatever you can out of the dog owners, and then you take, you know, you stop funding this stuff, right? Like a dog park, that should be 100% private money. And maybe some of them are, but many, you know, cities, all this stuff, they're going to do anything. Now, as far as this due process rights to dogs, dogs are not people. They don't have a right to a protection in our legal system. A dog bites somebody, like you said, Huntress, a dog bites somebody, boom, done. Out the back into the dumpster. Because this is expensive. So just something for folks to think about. I just brought this up because this kind of reply is very, very common. Basically, it's kind of like, you know, one of their bingo games. So, all right, I'll let you two speak for a while. I've ranted enough. So,
well, with the shelter, let's see. First, I wonder, are there a lack of? Oh God, I'm hearing feedback. Hold on.
We don't hear it on your end. Sometimes when you talk, though, it's like you do sort of fade in and out some. So I guess I don't know where
I don't know what that is. I have my ear pods, you know, the Apple ear pods on. If if I use the speaker, then people say, well, I can't hear you. It's kind of cutting in
Yeah,
and
you get
out.
the
So,
feedback. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's yeah, I mean, for the most part, you're coming through fine. We don't hear any feedback or background noise on your end. So that's good. Because
okay.
often on these things we do. Like I say, look, it ain't 60 minutes. What do you know? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is my first time figuring it out. But first, is it a lack of lawyers that want to stand up and be the one? Because anyone who does like Christy Nome, I mean, that she was immediately canceled. Period. That was the end of that. And you still hear people every once in a while referring to it like and puppy killing. Oh my God, that's just no
She
way.
murdered an innocent puppy.
Yeah, 14 months is whatever, not a
Yeah.
puppy.
Well, probably the only
But
reason she didn't go to jail is probably because a statute of limitations on that has run out. And
yeah, and
plus,
maybe
she's a
South
governor,
Dakota
so
doesn't consider it a real crime in a rural farm or something. But the other thing would be then, is there a lack of lawyers? It just seems like there's a lack of a person that wants to stand. Like, is Kenneth Phillips the only one who's brave enough to stand up? It seems like no one wants to take that on because they don't want to be cast out from, you know, I don't know.
it's
It still goes
politically
back.
well, yeah, it's politically incorrect, you know. And it's interesting, like with the Christy Nome case. Didn't she get a cabinet position though? I mean, I don't want to go down some rabbit
No,
hole, but
I'm not sure, but yeah,
she
I
may,
don't.
well, she may not.
Maybe.
She'll probably the Senate will vote like 100-0 to kick her out because that's typically it's like even the Republicans won't stand up for her because yeah, that's it. But that's what's interesting is you get into these policies like you know the like that stuff. It's like yeah, back in the 70s, 80s, that's what you did, you know. One of my stories when I was maybe 5, we had a boxer as a family pet, bit me, deleted, took her to the vet. Because yeah, we lived in a really crowded, like dense suburb, so a firearm was probably not a good idea, but that's what you did. It's like no, and even as far as like loose dogs, back in the 80s, you had dog catchers and they would round all these dogs up, and any dog that wasn't, acclaimed by the owner or perhaps adopted out in 2 weeks got the needle. And that's it. And everybody was pretty cool with it. That was a policy. But you try to do something like that today, it's like, yeah, the comparisons to, Mustache Man to come out.
Yeah, the links that they go to save a dog that is knowing that killed, human beings.
Yep.
It's just like crazy theater. Like we shouldn't even be, having this discussion. The thing should already be dead, not no 10-day spa hold or any of that. Give them the Peanut and Fred treatment.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well,
Just
the
do
thing
it.
is that like a squirrel, like no other animal has a political capital like dogs. So calling a SWAT team on an illegal squirrel is, although I think a lot of people did object to that, particularly the heavy-handed nature of it, because that's not typically how something like that is handled. But you go to places with like, pit bull bans and somebody's got a half a dozen pit bulls and they're like, they're lab mixes. It's cool. Don't worry about it.
There was this one on NextDawg. It's just the source of hell. But anyway, this lady was trying to rehome this thing that the shelter had called a healer mix, but you put a picture of it. It might have had some healer colorings, but it was an obvious blocky headed pit bull. And she said because it's starting to attack the cats, and people are like, rehome the cats. And she
Yeah.
says, well, it's also starting to I'm worried about my toddler. And I wanted to come on and say, rehome the toddler then, you know. I mean,
They'll say
as
that.
a
They'll say
joke.
like,
Yeah, everything for this one dog. And obviously it's a ticking time bomb. And no, it's not only in your little house, but it could affect the next door neighbors too, or
yep,
a DoorDash person or something. Why? Oh, geez. Well, I got kicked off. I got put in timeout for that because then I said something. I said something about it's a pit bull, and I just wouldn't take the risk. And some other lady came on and said, "That's not a pit bull." And I said, any blind person could see that that's a pit bull, So I got kicked off for that. But I don't know what became of the dog. But this is like dealing with you know, plastic explosives, and they're trying to pass it off to another person.
yeah,
And it's like, it just needs to be put away properly.
yep,
You don't go passing it around, because I said that to the girl too. I said, don't make it someone else's problem, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. It's unethical. Particularly because of the way they do it. They're like, well, Rover is better in a home without children, meaning that he'll attack kids, right? That's what it means. And yeah, I mean, it's fundamentally, wrong to do that. But the current under the current zeitgeist is seen as being acceptable.
Yeah, and I sent something to Kanan, and it was about another pit bull that they've kept alive in litigation for like 5 years or something. It's just it's ridiculous.
Yep.
I volunteered at a shelter, and no problem deleting cats, absolutely none. But they'll triple up and quadruple up the mutts until parvo outbreak, and then they have to put most of them to sleep, I guess. That whole town was just totally dog nuts. The city manager was in a meeting once and saying, well, we got a $24,000 grant to expand the cat room, but we're not going to use it for that. And it's like, that's illegal.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
The
Yeah. That's another. That's what I said of like a lot of times the pet rescue or the shelter scam, if it involves, if it maybe superficially involves another animal, really that's it's it's because the monies are sort of illegally, it's a fraud basically. They're like, oh yeah, give us some money to help out these home. And some people are gonna be like, well, fuck you get some cat haters in here, but that is a per se fraud. Okay, the money should go to what it was meant for, what it was intended for. Well, yeah, it all gets
Yeah.
funneled into dough. But it's funny, if you read this article here, it's funny you should bring that up. I mean, I knew that, but if you go back to this article here, they're like, too, as they're saying, oh, basically, like, again, they wrap it up with some cat bashing. So yeah, this is a dog nutter that's trying to deflect. You can't control the dog population because it's too expensive. So that's why we just need to let dogs and dog owners just do whatever they want, because otherwise we'll just immediately go bankrupt. And besides, all the resources have been dumped into like outdoor cats anyway. That's why we have 35 trillion in debt, right? It's those damn outdoor cats. Derp,
Yeah.
derp, derp.
Well, what I would say to that, people are, first of all, if there were no more dogs of any kind on the planet, we'd all feel, safe to walk and skate and ride our bikes in our neighborhoods, and you wouldn't even notice the cats unless you went out and sought them. But for anyone who says, oh, you need to eradicate the cats, it's like, well, the last time they did that to a degree was like during the Crusades, and they got rid of all the cats and threw them off church towers and all that good stuff. And then you got the Black Plague because there was nothing to kill the rats anymore. So
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, well, that's I guess one thing they claim, but I mean, a lot of it too is, like I said, it's a dog problem, right? Like sort of the mindless aggression you see, like what I experienced on my hike last weekend. The only animal doing that are dogs, right? I've never had people say, oh, what about the bears? And there's bears living on that property too, but they don't bother anybody. property. And that's the thing is like, you know what? If somebody hates cats, fine. You can hate whatever you want. I hate Brussels sprouts, right? They're leafy green things from hell. But that doesn't, yeah, it doesn't really negatively impact the life of anyone else. Like, yeah, did you get meowed out of your house? Or, yeah, are you unable to bike your neighborhood because of, people's outdoor pet cats or even a feral cat colony? Like, no, I mean, just even the concept of those things, it's ridiculous. It's just, but that's the thing is they don't care about that either. They're just trying to deflect away from the dog, right? So
Well, that's it. And who's that one brave person that's going to bring it all back? I mean, like in a public setting, like a city council meeting, yeah, we're going to discuss, the dog noise pollution and all the dogs. I mean, we're like close to being India around here. It's always, and it's huskies and German shepherds and Malinois and Pitskis and Shepskis, all that lovely mix. They're escape artists and they got out and blah blah. It's just never ending, and it's dangerous to everyone else. I kind of lost my train of thought, but if we were allowed, the people, because I'm in an unincorporated county area, it's like if we were allowed to delete the roaming dogs, people would figure out a way to keep them secure on their own property.
Oh yeah. Well, because they do it because they know they can get away with it. And probably a lot of times, like, we talk about the triple S, of animal, of dog control, like it, shoot, shovel, and shut up, and that happens. Now, I would say to everybody, always obey local laws. And sometimes even shooting a dog in self-defense. Forget about varminting. Just even if it's attacking yourself or another person, that can get you. And Colleen Lynn was on one of these calls last year. She says, yeah, I get called by people quite frequently. Like, I shot or stabbed the dog that was attacking me or my kid, and I got arrested for animal cruelty.
That's
I mean, it's
nuts.
ridiculous. And that's itself. I mean, usually you're talking about if you have nuisance animals and you're culling. Like, say here, and it's true actually in much of the country, we have a feral hog problem, but one important distinction there, and actually I blogged and vlogged about them also, because that's a big problem, because they're not wild animals. They're actually descended from domestic pigs. But, too, is like on private property, you can, they don't even have to be doing it. They don't have to be behaving dangerously or tearing up crop. They could just be sitting there. Blammo, you can blow them away. You can shoot them until your gun barrel melts. And not only is it allowed, it's not just tolerated, it's actually encouraged. They like these forest and park rangers, they hate those things. And they're even having on public land. Even the property I was at the other weekend is they have special hog hunts. Like, normally the hunting season is in the fall, but they have a couple of, at least 2, maybe 3 special hog hunts in the spring. I think I might go out there because I shot some hogs myself. But yeah, it's sort of like, why you apply those rules? Because either they'll all get shot or the owners will figure out a way to control them better. So, yep.
Yeah, and they give permits in some states for like if the mountain lion population gets out of hand, they'll give permits.
Yeah.
I guess they're allowed to shoot one, and same with coyotes. I mean, there are a lot of coyotes around here too. But unfortunately, I don't think they go after like the Malinois that runs loose at night that I catch on my security camera all the time, or they go under for the cats and rabbits and little critters.
Yeah, culling of, well, it's interesting because, yeah, in a lot of places, I think here in Florida, I think that coyotes have been varminted also, mainly because I don't believe they're not natural to the environment here. They're considered invasive, and they, cause a lot of problems. They, attack livestock and other domestic animals. What other animal does that? But you can delete them. But what's interesting is that they pretty closely resemble domestic dog breeds. Like from a distance, who can tell the difference between a coyote and say a husky or a Malamute? You know, it's not that easy. Oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
definitely can, because I see I have a lot of coyotes on, and that's why I could tell that the Malinois, and it is kind of like wild. It doesn't go barking, but it's much bigger than the coyotes, much taller, longer legs, and it's got the black head. And coyotes are more kind of sandy gray, you know, they're pretty distinct. I've seen some pretty big ones and then some pretty young ones. I mean, they come down from the hill, not too far from me there. So I can kind of tell the difference, except for that one where me and my friend went for the walk, and I could not tell if that was a German Shepherd or a coyote.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, don't they kind of closely resemble. Let's open up. Let me look at some here. What
to
is
me,
it?
they resemble German Shepherds, I think.
Yeah, coyote. Yeah, they do kind of look like. Yeah, what I wonder, there was a case pretty recently, and I guess it had some comedic value, where a woman was hunting coyotes and she shot someone's pet husky, you know, was running
Yeah.
off leash, and she actually like skinned it and gutted it and everything. And it turns out, yeah, it was somebody's pet dog, but fortunately for her, I guess it was written off since there was no intent there, it was written off as an accident. Another good reason to keep your dogs under control. So coyotes, yeah. So what domestic? You're right. I guess from a distance, they do kind of resemble huskies. Let me see, bring up some images here. And I guess you might have like, you know, subspecies and the like, but these have been varminted in many places also. Although they're probably they're less of a threat than domestic dogs, but again, domestic dogs got all the political capital. So
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know what the big paradigm shift will be to make that not a thing anymore. But
yeah,
and there's coy dogs or coyote dog mix, kind of like there are the wolf dogs,
yeah,
um, because people's loose male, whatever, shepherd or husky or alligator is running around and, you know, impregnates a female coyote, and then they're
yep.
born, you know, in the wild too.
So you get like a coyote mix. Well, it's interesting. 7 dog breeds that look like coyotes. You had Czechoslovakian wolf dog. Yeah, it kind of looks like a coyote. What else? The Sarlos wolf dog. Those are both pretty obscure breeds.
Yeah.
You know, to that I've never even heard of. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Tamaskin, Kugsha. They do look
Never
a
heard of
lot
any
like
of
husky.
those.
Oh, here's Siberian husky. So, and these are fairly common. So, yeah, I could see somebody mixing them. I'm particularly somebody who's doesn't really know their dog breeds. Like I could see that and think maybe it was
Yeah, that's got the gray and the brownish and whitish. Some of them have, you know, more distinctive markings like the masks and things. And this one there definitely looks more like a coyote.
yeah.
Um,
But also a coy dog. Yeah. So I'm thinking, but you're right. Like German shepherds you know, can resemble coyotes. And it's sort of like, yeah, I mean, if you can, you know, varmint coyotes, like why not these? But you know, too, is like I said, I mean, they have a lot of protection in the system, but that's arbitrary. You know, those protections could be removed at any time.
Who's going to be that brave person that does that?
I mean, it may just sort of happen by itself, but you know what I've been wanting to do is, and I raised this because I don't know if you remember, but last summer I had a call with an attorney and we were discussing standing up an anti-mutt.org. And I think the problem is, yeah, we're not quite at that point yet. But, you know, that's what we need to do is we need to basically make public policy proposals, like actually get legislation in front of our legislators that will help roll this stuff up. For example, like, you know, varminting, you know, these feral dog packs. And that goes back to, you know, we're talking about, where was that? Yeah, you know, that, well, it's too expensive. It's like, you know, 223 ammunition really isn't all that expensive. You know, I mean, I'll solve the problem and I won't even charge the government for it. You know, I'll do it. It's like, you know, charity. You know, I'm such a great guy that way. Hardy, har. Hey, Sheepie, you still there? Like you're
Yep,
on mute.
I'm still here.
You have any thoughts on that stuff?
I mean, I agree with what you guys are generally saying. I'm enjoying the conversation for sure.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I have to
Yeah.
start. There was a case in actually it was in Kuwait where these feral dog packs have been tearing up kids. So you think it's a Muslim majority country, so you think that culling them wouldn't be such a problem, but the operation was shut down, and of course all the news coverage was like really negative, right? It was like, well, they called it like, you know, a massacre team of, you know, assassins and all that stuff, and it was some local rifle club, so I guess it would be the equivalent of like an NRA chapter or something, and they said, yeah, we're just going to go delete them, but it was shut down by the government there. They're calling it a massacre team. It's like, hey, dudes, like I'm putting together a massacre team. You want to sign up? You're like, yay!
Yeah, they were.
I'm kind
recently
of
trying to do
surprised it
that.
got shut down. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
but even that's the thing is that the reach of the Mutt matrix is very long, and it even extends into those places. So
Well, Turkey was recently trying to call, and you know, it got an international, you know, fight against it. Oh, barbarians, and oh my God, and you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But when you see pictures of them, like what would be a CVS or something, you're walking down an aisle and there's oh my God.
there's a dog just like lying there. Yeah, that kind of blew me away. You know, what's interesting was, you know, Romania has taken some steps to deal with their feral dog population. I did a monologue on that. It was one of the, you know, my Mutt heads monologues. And I was talking about worldviews but their policy is, I mean, it's interesting. It's called culling, or people are calling it that. It's like, oh, you're just, you know, culling them, you're exterminating them. But what's interesting is that's really not what they're doing. You know, they have dog catchers round these things up. They bring them to the pound, and where the dog gets to stay for 2 weeks if it's, you know, if it's not claimed by an owner or somebody willing to adopt the dog after 2 weeks, it gets the needle. And yeah, everybody was like foaming at the mouth over that. But what's ironic is that was perfectly reasonable public policy in the United States circa 1985 in most of the country. That's how it worked. You know, it wasn't until later, maybe like late 90s, 2000s, when it's like, oh, I guess really it shifted. It was a Michael Vick pit bull fighting bust in 2007. That was a big turning point. But yeah, you didn't have the save them all mentality. And it's interesting, they're calling it culling. What they're doing in Romania is not culling. Culling is when they're killed. That's Rule 223. Or maybe they're trapped and immediately euthanized. That's culling. Letting them stay in the shelter for 2 weeks after they're caught is not culling. But so they've been successful because supposedly that the attacks by these feral dogs were down 40% as a result of the new policy. That, because you never see progress. That is good progress. I was like, nice job. Yeah, they have a way to go. But if you're looking for those deltas, the changes, particularly in a positive direction, that is really good work. Like, congratulations to them. Keep it up. Because maybe you won't eliminate the dog attacks, but if you can reduce them by a significant amount, that's good progress. It's good work. So more places need to do that. But that's the thing, is it may get so bad, perhaps here or other places, where mass culling, varminting them is the only way to get society functioning again. Because human beings can't live like this.
Apparently, so I just did a little bit of Googling, and I guess currently Morocco is on a feral dog culling spree, and they're just taking them out by the truckloads. They're being shot, poisoned, trapped. Let me see. I just pulled up an article. They're trying to get chosen for the 2030 World Cup, it looks like.
Okay.
And in an effort to clean up the country, to impress FIFA, they've undergone apparently organized a campaign to start killing all these stray dogs. And it's saying that let's see, they're being rounded up, left to rot where they fall, put in incinerators, mass graves. And it sounds like this is like sanctioned, or at least there's a blind eye being turned. It says government mandated gunmen cruise the urban and rural areas of Morocco day and night with rifles and pistols to shoot dogs.
Sounds like a
Yay,
fun
Morocco.
vacation.
I know. It looks like PETA is trying to stop it now, and there's like some petitions and things like that. But yeah, I hadn't heard about this. I just looked it up.
Yeah,
There's
that's
some
good.
pretty gruesome images.
And a lot of it too is if they can actually show results, because that's the problem. Is they say, okay, we need to do something about this feral dog population. What do they come up with? Usually some half-ass like spay neuter program. We'll do trap, neuter, release. A lot of problems with that. But one is, that never produces results. Probably at best, the problem just gets worse at a lower rate. Joe, Animal Abuse in Hungary, did a video where he did a, deep dive into, how do these feral dog packs come about? Like, where do they come from? And he made basically there's 3 basic sources. You have lost dogs, like dogs that ran away and packed up with other dogs, because dogs are always so loyal to the owner. You have abandoned dogs, right? People that drive their dog out to a rural area and dump it, because dog owners are like just the best people on earth. And then you have dogs that are born into these feral dog packs, right? So the thing is that the spay neuter program, you're not going to get all of them. The logistics are a nightmare. You're not going to get all of them. People are going to continue to lose and dump their dogs that are in, sexually functioning, and they'll like produce more feral dogs. It's like shoveling against the tide. Moreover, like the whole release part of the TNR is a big no-go. Releasing like feral dogs, I would consider that, like, if they're to do that here, that is a hostile act.
Yeah.
They're putting the neighborhood in danger by doing that. Forget about culling the dogs. we should call the animal rights people that are promoting this stuff. But the thing is, oops, did I say something? The thing is that those things, because they're going to bring that up. Oh, let's do that. Never, unlike the Romania project, this TNR BS never produces any positive results. It's like, okay, give me some numbers. Are the attacks up or down? How many of them are there? Right? Give me something to like sink my, throw me a bone here, but they never do. And they never do because those things don't work. The approach is fundamentally flawed. Okay. And I'm not even appealing to perfection. It's like, yeah, they need to be culled. And they're going to say, okay, well, you can't shoot all of them. Can you? And I'll say, yeah, hold
Why
my
not?
beer. Hold my beer. So.
Yeah, and the no-kill movement is an obvious failure, and there's just too many of them. Like there's no lack. You can go anywhere, and yeah, we've got mastiffs, wild mastiffs that came wild, living in the orange groves, and that scene with the babysitter in the bathroom and these things tearing at the door, that sounds like a lion or a bear, and they would shoot it straight up
Yep.
upon arrival. And why is that? Why are people allowed to have things like that as pets? I just don't get the whole thing.
Well,
And
because
pit bulls
they're dogs,
particularly, and
because whatever sensibilities that would normally be applied to the keeping of domestic animals are never applied because, like I said, the dogs are a whole completely different set of considerations. Because they have all this political capital they've managed to accumulate. Yeah, no kill fails in multiple ways and multiple levels. One is it contributes to animal suffering, but it's promoted. Interesting to bring that up. I've seen that on NextDawg. That my local dog nutters are agitating to make our county shelter no kill, and
yeah,
that's but I want to reply that, like, look, that's a complete fail. But the thing is, they do it because it's virtue signaling. It's ego boosting. They feel, oh yes, give them all a chance. So they do it just to feel good about themselves and virtue signal to others. It doesn't do the dogs any good. It doesn't do the community any good, because what'll happen is, the dog shelter will start overflowing, mostly with pit bulls that nobody wants. And then they won't be able to take owner surrenders. They won't be able to pick up loose dogs. So we're going to wind up being like, India or one of these places that has, loose dogs everywhere, and rabies outbreaks and the whole 9 yards. Meanwhile, the dogs that are being warehoused have a miserable existence. Right? You're better off putting a dog down than like putting it in a cage for the rest of its life.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently a child in Morocco had like fairly recently died of rabies. And these animal rights groups are blaming the culling of stray dogs because they're saying that the feral dogs are being displaced from their habitats, and that's what caused them to bite a child, and the child ended up dying of rabies. So what they're saying they think Morocco should do is trap. And by the way, there's 3 million stray dogs they're trying to like cull. 3 million.
jeez.
So these organizations want Morocco to trap neuter, spay, vaccinate, and
Yeah.
release them back into what they're calling their natural habitat, which is like the streets. I mean, these aren't like a wild natural
Right,
animal.
exactly. They're not wild. Like that argument might hold water if you were talking about wildlife, although that doesn't happen with wildlife either. Like shooting bears does not increase bear attacks, at least not that I know of, right? So I don't see why, shooting these things would again do anything except bring those numbers down. Right. And yeah, like I was saying, the whole TNR thing. So they got 3 million feral dogs. How big is Morocco anyway? So it's a majority Islamic country. How big? So they've got, actually, it's bigger than I thought. I thought this was like one of those like tiny countries like Luxembourg or something, but it's okay. So it's 172,000 square miles. So that's about twice the size of Florida, I guess, in terms of land mass. But but it's not a it's not a big country. So you got 3 million feral dogs, and yeah, their habitat are human spaces because they do things. They prey on livestock. People feed them. They eat out of the trash. They don't. This isn't some forest dweller. Like they're not like, say, like Florida panthers that you'd never see because they just stay as far away from human settlements as possible. No, these are, they're feral, but they're kind of quasi domesticated, I guess. So yeah, and what they're proposing isn't going to work. It's not going to improve the numbers.
The very telling thing, and I think it was IHD that was talking about that turkey, like in the 20s or whatever, they just put them all on an island and they eventually died off. If that doesn't tell you that they aren't natural and that they have to be, siphoning off of humans, then I don't know what does.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they can't survive on their own. Or, I always thought like a scary movie would be like you're on an island with a bunch of dogs, remove all the innocent creatures first, and then, they kill each other, and then it's down to, I mean, how long would you, I don't know, that sounds like complete hell.
Yeah.
But the other thing, like the EPA had a report about the actual groundwater and air pollution. It got pulled. I'm wondering how deep the dog lobby is
Yeah.
and the interests in Mars Candy Company that owns, an interest in veterinarian and the 90 billion or whatever plus dollars that goes into this. Um, okay, come on, out with it, out with it.
God, out with
Well, some of this stuff.
Are you talking about the Chevron ruling or?
Oh no, there's another thing. What's that?
Oh, okay.
But
Sorry, continue.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they could butt in because it's like, yeah, I didn't know about that, but we know that, well, the EPA rates dog sewage at the same level as an oil spill. So, so if you have a neighborhood that's covered in dog shit, that's basically the same as an oil spill. Now, obviously, those two things would be treated very, very differently. That's their classification. That's not some independent group or something. That's what they have to say about it. And they don't do it. There's actually multiple. So that's what they have to say. But you wonder how, deeply does the corruption go? Because you're right, the whole dog industrial complex is part of it. But I think that probably, I don't know how much of it, but you just have the overall, like for the same reason people don't want to speak out about it. Like if you're the EPA director, factor. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you're getting money under the table from Purina or whatever. But, probably a more reasonable explanation would be that either you're a dog nutter yourself, right? Or you're somebody who's aware of the fact that crossing the cult can bear very, very serious consequences, right? Like, social consequences, right? You could be fired from your job, shunned at church, your house will be vandalized, that kind of thing, because it's a militant totalitarian cult or some combination of all those things, right? So, yeah, the EPA should be taking an issue in the dog waste, problem, but they're not. Actually, they should be taking an issue in the dog noise pollution issue because they have a mandate to regulate noise emissions. And they don't do anything about this dog noise pollution problem either.
Yeah, well, they removed the report, and they just have a couple of cutesy brochures. It took me a while to find those, but also like the statistics. How come, like the CDC or whoever's in charge supposed to be doing that, aren't keeping up? How come we don't have like up to date statistics?
Well, because nobody wants them. Because the
Right,
truth
exactly.
the truth is politically incorrect. You have to talk about all the statistics, like the death statistics and bite statistics and all that stuff. I mean, we've been here, 4.5 million bites a year. I've been hearing that for 13 years.
Yeah,
It has to
it's
be
just
way higher.
suppression. Total
Yeah.
suppression from all angles that it can come from. To government reports, to the lack of will to update statistics. But the way it's going now, it's just so bad. It's like 2 a week of
Yeah.
these. And at some point, people are going to be going, what the actual fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's interesting, like with the deaths, like Colleen is saying, at dogsbite.org, that she'll get called, and she's not a major political figure or anything, or a major celebrity, but somebody who's familiar with her site or her work will contact her and say, hey, you know what? I have an acquaintance or, a friend of a friend or something that was killed in a dog attack. And I don't see it anywhere. It's not in the media. I don't see it on your site. So Colleen will do the grunt work. She'll issue the FOIA request to like county coroner and sheriff's office and all the usual cast of characters, and find out that, yeah, that person, they did in fact die as a result of a dog attack. Maybe it was sort of kind of couched in something else. We talk about passive language they use, but I don't know if cover up is the right word, but yeah, it was just never reported anywhere. The sheriff didn't do a press release or any kind of public conference on it. It's just like, yeah, somebody died. The hell of a thing, and that's it. So you wonder how much of that there is. And even, bites are misattributed. Well, even many dog owners, if their dog attacks them, they won't report it. I've known people who've been gone to the emergency room with injuries sustained in a dog attack, and they're like, yeah, as soon as I'm leave here, I'm calling police. And the ER staff will be like, oh, no, don't tell police. They'll put the dog down. So that doesn't I would be like, oh, yeah, sure, sounds like a good idea. And then I just go do it anyway. But that happens. Then you have the police departments themselves are corrupted. So, yeah, it is the whole thing is massively corrupt. But the more of these things we can uncover, the better. So.
Well, I think at some point, because there's just a lot of changes going on right now and things are being revealed, I don't think that everything that's been, bad, like, government, whatever, not to get off into that, but like Chaos, that book, or just how deep and dark, and Diddy and Epstein and all that, how deep and dark and how involved it is. We couldn't possibly have all that thrown at us at the same time. It would just be too much mentally to take. So
Yeah.
it's seeping in and seeping in, and the information is, we're starting to get bits and pieces of things and going, whoa, how was that allowed to happen for so long?
Yeah. And a lot of people,
That's
it's
happening.
interesting is, when people wake up, I mean, people, things we talk about on here, people are in shock to find out that, the truth, like that dogs that maul and even kill are not summarily put down. That people that defend themselves in dog attacks get arrested for animal cruelty, right? That we don't know the extent of, like, again, dog waste, pollution, and the impact it has, not just in the natural environment, but even our human environment. All that, they're like, really? Or the fact that, like, for example, that the whole service dog scenario is on the honor system. Like, they're shocked to find that out. I mean, they don't need a permit to do that. It's like, nope. And they're like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the ADA was created to make it easier for people with disabilities to live amongst, to make the ramps for the wheelchairs and, accommodate in some ways, so they wouldn't necessarily be a burden and draw attention to, their disability or whatever. So those should be the ones strongly standing up and saying, you know, calling this dog a service dog is like ripping off grandma's, handicap placard.
Right,
So you can
stealing it.
park,
Well, if people, were doing it with those handicap parking permits, oh yeah,
Yeah.
they'd be blasted to smithereens. But the thing is, and that's what a lot of people say, even legit disabled people, like, I have to get a permit for one of those parking spots. Why don't they need it for the dog? And it's like, well, really, it's because the service dog scenario has really nothing to do with helping disabled people. Even some of the segments, like, Chef and I have collaborated on some work. Only something like 1% of disabled people use a service dog, which is basically that what margin of error. And those people, even the legit ones, are probably level 5 dog farmers. Because just because someone's disabled doesn't mean they can't be completely crazy or a bad person. Sorry, but that's just the way it is. But really, it's about promoting, like, the fact that it's not a permitted activity, a formally permitted activity, means that, really, it's just the purpose of it is to advance the interests of dog owners. So you don't have to leave your dog at home or even in the car when you go to the grocery store. You can just walk him in there, and if he happens to take a dump, it's like, oh well, staff will take care of that, right? So.
Yeah, I think my ear pods just died. Hold on, let me see. Maybe I better mute. Hold on.
That's all right. Hey, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sheepie.
Oh no, that's I was just gonna mention something while she fixes her, like, ear pods and stuff, but I'm not sure that this is going to have an impact on, like, dog waste or anything like that, because already nothing seems to be being done about it anyways. But it might be interesting to look into how that Chevron ruling could have any type of impact on this stuff.
Yeah, let's take a look at that, because I think I'm kind of vaguely familiar with what you're talking about, but let's see. Chevron.
Yeah, so essentially the way I understand it, and I'm actually still trying to learn more about it, but the Supreme Court overruled or like overturned this Chevron 1984 decision that you have pulled up on your screen, which is kind of what gave federal agencies the ability to set standards for things like waste and emissions. So this is basically what's happened now is they're saying that these federal agencies have overstepped their authority by putting in any type of like clean water, clean air standards. And now these decisions, it kind of falls in line with this idea that like the conservative side or like Republicans for a while now have been attempting to kind of use the judicial system to their advantage, like, ruling from the bench type of thing. So now instead of like environmental policy and like industry experts that are supposed to comprise these federal agencies making decisions, it'll come it'll come to like a courtroom and like a judge who probably isn't like an expert, right, in these types of questions, determining whether or not uh, they agree with like whatever EPA regulation there is.
Right.
I'm
Well, I
not
mean,
very great at
yeah.
explaining it,
Well,
but
there's something to be said for is that you want legislators, making laws, not because the thing is that like before, right? Because this is not a problem that just started on June 29th, 2024. So even in this space, it probably doesn't matter. It may impact other things. Like they weren't regulating dog waste before, and
yeah,
they're not
exactly.
now. But I think the thinking behind this is that you don't want, because a part of the problem is talking about setting rules is that these agencies they're not accountable to voters. So that's the thing, is really like rulemaking should be done in the legislature, if that
Right.
makes sense. Like
Yeah, well, from my
that's what's
understanding,
being, yeah.
well, so Congress rules, or like Congress makes the rules essentially. It's not like the EPA makes laws. The contention was that the EPA was given the authority to interpret like gray areas in congressional legislation, since they're supposed to be like industry experts, or like, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
they were basically given, like, Congress passed a law, right? Or Congress makes some legislation, and then there was some part of it that was unclear, like that's where you would have the FDA or the EPA step in, or OSHA. Like this could impact OSHA. It's kind of a big deal. Like whatever side you stand on with it, I think it's important to understand, because this could have very wide sweeping implications across the board for things like workplace safety, emission standards. Like apparently recently the Supreme Court blocked the EPA from enforcing the good neighbor rule, which had to do with air pollution that was like float like affecting neighboring states. So I don't know. It's kind of a big deal. Is all
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to say.
well, I definitely see that. Yeah, I was thinking, the thinking behind it is that, with like gray areas, like how gray is it now? If you go back to this into this space, like they were doing nothing before. Because that's a problem with like interpreting. Like they could say, okay, the rule is that, okay, well, like all dog shit needs to be picked up, but they can well, I say if we talk about laws in the dog space, like what does like a poop scoop law mean? Well, it means you can just leave dog shit everywhere, right?
Which
What
is
is
not different than
what,
now.
what does a leash law mean? Well, leash law means you can let your dog run loose everywhere. That's what that means, right? Or what does no pit bulls mean? No pit bulls means you can own all the pit bulls you want, right? And I don't know if that's not necessarily interpretation. That's just outright negligence, right? So I guess too is, yeah, they don't, and I think it's a good idea. You don't want to give these these agencies too much leeway, because it could go either way, right? So
Right.
that's part of the problem. So like you said, yeah, regardless of where you stand, this could be problematic or not, right? I mean,
Yeah, exactly. It
we're-
kind of is going to be something that remains to be seen, but I do think it could have pretty like wide uh impacts on, because okay, maybe you don't want some federal agency to have this authority, but do you want like a judge? That seems to be even like, I don't know. It's
you're
just an
right.
interesting
Well, I
thing.
guess
Yeah.
there's some separation of powers there. It's just like, the police can't just search your house or your car. They need a warrant, right? They need a sign off from a judge. So, you don't want them just doing, well, because that's what they are really. They're enforcement people. So, and as far as like, if the law has gray areas, it's like, well, maybe the laws need to be written better.
Right. Yeah, it'll be
That's
interesting
the
to
problem.
see.
So, and they
And
should be able to go. They should be able to go back and say, okay, we need this or we need that. So maybe there's some public discussion of the issue or things like that. So,
well, I remember in the 80s and 90s that OSHA, everyone was afraid of OSHA and, not complying with OSHA. And now, I don't know, I'm not really in the working world anymore, but I just don't even hear that being thrown around. Just like in the 70s, well, I'm going to call the BBB on you, and report your business. Those things have kind of lost some power. So, but then, giving them too much or, not enough. And then just a lot of laws are being skirted and lawfare and BS like that. So it's just the corruption and the dog problem is probably like lowest on their totem pole,
yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking up like OSHA because, OSHA does offer protections, right, for workers. Like OSHA put in standards that you can't just, force your workers to be like working 12 hours in like 100 plus degree weather without breaks and
Yeah.
water like Gatorade and stuff like that. But apparently it says OSHA doesn't have any specific rules that prohibit animals in the workplace. So I guess we're probably still out of
Well,
luck on
yeah.
that.
Well, that's the thing is, it's like I think, you need like specific rules, anyway, right? Because if it's kind of like, if you're enforcement people or even as the public, like can't interpret the rules, then you need clearer rules. So, that's a point worth making also, because that happens a lot. It's like with the 2008 financial crisis. So first of all, there may have been rules in place to fix that beforehand, but nobody saw the need to do so. Because really, I'd like to see that too. Is like, I'd like to have, not that I necessarily agree with this, but I would like the enforcement people to have less leeway in both directions, right? Because you could say, okay, maybe they can't stop a polluter, but they should have clear instructions on what to do. And there should be, perhaps penalties if they don't do them, right? Like if you go back to our, animal control agencies. I mean, even in my neighborhood, like there's clearly laws being broken and they don't do anything. And I guess too, as they use that, actually was in my first monologue, right? It was called, what did I call it? Like return to order or something. But the thing is, yeah, I mean, enforcement people have discretion, right? And the thing is, yeah, they abuse, at least in this space, they abuse discretion actually in a couple of ways, because to get dogs and dog people off the hook and to go after other people, like one area, I mean, this is federal law that's under consideration here. We talk about the people, arrested for, quote, animal cruelty. Like, again, that's the enforcement people abusing discretion. It's like, okay, you shot the dog that had your 2-year-old's head in its mouth. okay, we're going to bust you for animal cruelty. And that's a case, it's frivolous prosecution. That's a case of the enforcement people kind of going the opposite, because the concern here is there might not be enough protection, but it's like, protection for who?
Yeah, and that
Right?
makes people apprehensive to intervene. It's if they come up on a dog attack, they they're like, well, bam, I can't afford to go to jail.
Yep.
I gotta be to work. It's like your hands are tied, completely tied.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to have a chilling effect, but where that kind of relates here is that they, that's perhaps that kind of discretion or that kind of leeway they shouldn't have. Like, in other words, like an animal cruelty case, it should be a clear case of somebody trying to make the animal suffer, like for its own sake, right? That there's not some kind of personal safety issue at risk. But yes, it is interesting stuff. I'll have to think about this some more. So, but
yeah, it's kind
Yeah.
of a big infinite circle of how do we get out of this? You're trapped. It's like, how do we get out of this? How do we bust through? What's the thing?
yeah.
It's just nuts. I mean, NextDawg is so depressing. It's like I'm surrounded by a bunch of really just, I need my safe space with my doggy people
Yeah.
in this town.
Well, the
I
thing
stay, I guess, so I can pay attention to who's who, and if they use their real photo, it's like, yep. When I see that person in public, I'm completely avoiding them because because I know they're a crazy dog nutter.
Yeah. Well, we want to get that antimutt.org stood up. But yeah, we'll have to work on that. With something to think about. Because I think that this is not sustainable, right? Because, like, for example, the feral dog population, if it gets too far, it's like our whole civilization is just going to collapse. It's going to collapse. And it's going to bring the dog cult down with it. So I don't want it to get to that point. But I think whatever the means are, this thing is going to bring itself down at some point. Hopefully that happens before it brings everything else. I'm not exaggerating. I'm serious. Are people going to stop going to work? Is that the answer?
Yeah, and maybe some of the unions, like the Postal Service union, is like, we are sick and tired of this. Let us carry guns or something, groups. But the thing is, like, is there a mayor that's brave enough to say, I'm going to what do you call it? Reform the system with animal control around here. And if it had anything that would hurt dogs, that person is not going to get, elected. Or if you tried to make a petition to make the laws in your city better, how many people will sign that petition? You could be standing in front of Walmart or something, and people are like, oh, bite me. Oh, I'm going to get my dog on you. And you just,
Yeah.
how dare you?
Yeah. Yeah, outside Walmart with a parade of dogs going in and out. One, white pill there was, the Publix. Publix is one of my regional grocery chain, and they, over the summer, earlier this year, they came in with a very strict no pets policy. Okay. Oh, Sheepie needs to drop. I'll catch you later. Thanks for joining. You and I can stay on though, but yeah, Publix came up with a very strict no pets policy. All these grocery stores have like if you go to Winn-Dixie, they have a no pet sign, but it's kind of unobtrusive. It's like knee height and it's small. Winn-Dixie has right at eye level, about 5.5 feet off the ground. You walk in, two big flanked either side, no pets, you know, service animals only. And it even goes on to say, like, emotional support animals are not service animals. You know what? I've not seen a mutt in there in months. And it's great. And
Yeah,
even when they first
brothers.
passed the policy, all the news articles, really it was very, very favorable. You know, that 90% of people agree, yeah, dogs don't belong in grocery stores.
Yeah, the Stater Brothers, I don't see them here, but like in Winco or Grocery Outlet, yeah, it's like a little dog park.
Yeah.
But the signs at Stater Brothers are like that. It's a big standing post. It's not some teeny tiny sign. So yeah, so I feel okay going into Stater Brothers. I like the Grocery Outlet because he has some good stuff, but it's like, oh God, I mean, yeah. Seeing dog butts and long leashes and hearing little yappers, and it's just like, wow. And how come then the health department doesn't get involved with that? What is tying their hands?
Yeah, well, the thing is they should, because, you know, that's illegal. You know, go back to the FDA, right? And even, you know, like restricting or how much leeway they have. They've chosen to exercise their discretion, their leeway by doing nothing. But they should, you know, like I said, that stuff should be reported to the local health department. Because dogs are, you know, restricted in those places. But yeah, they choose not to do so. But that's the thing is, yeah, maybe like, well, they already have part of the problem is that the service dog, you know, scenario was all based on hearsay. You know, it's not a formally permitted activity. So I guess it's a service dog, whatever, you know. So, but it was interesting. That was the white pill was, you know, the public's no pets policy actually was a big hit, and it seems to work. So maybe more places will follow suit. I can only hope. You know, except like Walmart. The other thing too is you figure with going like a social media, it's like, you know, really they only most of the people on those sites are just it's not everybody. Like I would say probably less than 10% of the people in my neighborhood, less than 20% certainly are on there. And probably only a few percent actually post anything. So, you know, you're not really getting it's the people that are, you know, loud and obnoxious and want to draw attention to themselves. Like, you know, dog people.
Yeah, that's them definitely. They're the loudest, and I don't know. They just drown us. I don't know. I think the nutters are just like the animals they love so much. Just you
Yeah.
know, zero boundaries, loud, clumsy, clueless. In fact, you know, people have suggested, well, maybe there's a parasite that it in the brain that, you know, dog owners get. Maybe it's shrinking the human prefrontal cortex, you know.
Yeah, well, it's like consume their entire brain, so there's nothing but like a fried raisin at the top of their spinal cord.
With a dog bone in it.
Yeah, the dog bone in it. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things you can attribute to this. You know, the brood parasite theory is, I mean, it's definitely, I think, a big part of it. You know, because they, you know, the dogs, you know, the dogs themselves, you know, exploit the nurturing, you know, instincts in humans, and maybe that's why everybody's a fanatic about dogs, but not other animals, even other animals that people like. So, interesting stuff.
Yeah, I don't like that manipulative stuff. The you know the doggy eyes.
The
And
dog, well, the doggy eyes,
mouth.
you know, yeah, it's facial expressions. various body language. We've like shown that on here. It's like sometimes you look at some of these photos, you can kind of see it. I mean, it doesn't gain a lot of traction with me, but it's like, oh, previously of some pit bull that's killed somebody, but oh, they got the puppy dog eyes. Oh, can't we give Rover another chance?
Oh God. Well, I still think in the long run, we'll bust through.
Yeah.
We'll be able to have some rational discussion and debate about this. Right now is all about safe spaces, and I'm special, and and I need my security blanket, and I don't know, like man up or women up.
Yeah, that's right. Grow up. We were talking about, to shift gears, I guess, because you're aware of our, favorite YouTuber and how he's been bashing people in this space. And thinking, what did he come up with recently? Well, one thing too is, we're talking about the leashing, scenarios. Last time, Mr. J and I were looking at, sort of the futility of certain leashing arrangements. Like, in other words, if you got a 10-year-old walking a 200-pound bull mastiff, like that's a fail. Like, they don't really have control over the dog. Same thing, if the same dog is being walked even by a pro wrestler, but they're using one of those flimsy retractable leashes that has a break strength of maybe 60 pounds, that's a fail. Actually, I wanted to look up something real quick. Let's take a look at something else. Like, what's a pulling strength? I think we looked that up for Husky, I think. For XL Bully. Well, how much can an XL Bully weight pulling legends?
Like 2 tons. Have you seen the video with the one that has a rope tied to the bumper of a car or something, and
as pulling the car? Yeah.
God,
so
that's not a pet.
So anyway, he and I were, Mr. J and I were talking about the futility of some of these leashing arrangements. And of course, somebody, a cough, took that to say, oh, they must mean that you're better off just letting your dog run loose. It's like, no, dummy, that's not the point we were trying to make. The point is, if the dog is not properly restrained, it shouldn't be out in public, it shouldn't be anywhere, right? That's the point we were trying to make. And I think anybody who's not a moron picked up on that. I believe we even said that flat out. Okay. That's not the point we're trying to. It took the 2 pit bulls I encountered last weekend. I guess they were, I guess, properly restrained. Although, what if the dog had turned on their handler? There's like that whole mess. So that was like, something they tried, because turning your dog loose in one of these natural areas is a fail in many ways and many levels. I've, gone over that, multiple times. It's bad for the dog. Can get the dog injured. The other point, they were making was like, first, they claimed that they had, quote, big steel balls, because they were critiquing, I hate dogs and some of other folks in the space. And it's like, first of all, you don't get to say that about yourself. But then you think, okay, what does a metaphor mean? Like, normally say if somebody's ballsy, it's a reference to testicular fortitude. In other words, it's somebody who will take exceptional risks or is unusually brave somehow. That's what it refers to, right? And then, and some people, but the thing is criticizing us doesn't really cost anybody anything, right?
He's kind of in goading mode now. Like, everyone's kind of it, and he persists. And he's goading. I mean, and trying to even say more personal things that might trigger someone. And I think it's absolutely nuts. Kanan and I are joking around. He reminds me of Otto West in A Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, yeah. Was that the Kevin Kline character?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
But he was
Yep.
always misquoting philosophical stuff.
Well, he quoted Nietzsche too. I was like, I need a Nietzschean analysis of the connection between Stonehenge, the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, and Best Friends Animal Society. I'm sure it's there if you think deeply enough about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I read Nietzsche when I was like 18 and 19, going through my existential crisis when, out of high school or something. But I don't know. I don't know. Is it like, okay, see, I know these works, and now I'm going to show how I can analyze through philosophy. I don't know. I mean, I would maybe concentrate more on mass formation psychosis, or some of the DSM-5 lovelies like narcissism, extreme narcissism. And I don't know. I want to comment, but then I don't. I almost, on the last one, I just wanted to say something like, unburden yourself from the burdens of what was, and so that we can burden ourselves from the burden that is you, or whatever. I mean, just STFU, get over it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Excited, but we're going back to, like, you're talking about the balls metaphor. I hope that doesn't really offend anybody, but everybody knows what it means, right? Like, if you were to run into a burning building to save an orphan, I might say, dude, even though you're a woman, I'd be like, dude, that took some balls. Not like I'm not misgendering you or anything, but the point is, wow, that was a really exceptionally brave thing to do, right? But he's claiming that for himself by criticizing us. But then when he gets the backlash, then he flip-flops. There was said what he was referring to were actually like steel ball bearings, like used in machinery.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, does he even understand the metaphor? Because that's not what it, like, you don't say when somebody's ballsy, that doesn't mean it like, wow, your machinery has really, exceptional bearing surfaces. That's not what it's supposed to mean. Like, does he even,
ballsy, gutsy, man.
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
Oh, I said ballsy as in gutsy.
Yeah, right.
And the thing that drives me a little bonkers is referring to self in third person. That drives me batty.
Well, Animal Uncontrol said this, and Animal Uncontrol said that. Is he doing, I don't know. I just like avoiding, it was funny because going back to that whole brouhaha, people like that do inject themselves into the space from time to time. They come in, they build some cred, and then they start attacking everybody. Typically, like, for little or no reason. But they don't last very long. But yeah, he just keeps going, like, on and on and on. But I think probably the best thing, well, here I am talking about. I'm not saying who it is.
Nope.
But it's probably, we've come up with, folks have been saying we should do complete radio silence. Nobody talk about him. Nobody comment on any of his material. Don't reply to any comments he makes. Just like a complete blackout, right? The problem is that, getting not only everybody to agree to that, but to follow through on. Because I wasn't going to talk about him at all, but a couple of things happened. One was, well, first he was making some disparaging comments about me. And, well, and plus then he actually released some he posted my first and my last name in a community post. He did it kind of a passive aggressive way, but which was totally out of line. And So but plus everybody else, I figure, you know what, everybody else is talking about him. I might as well do so also. But I think too, as other folks in the space, it just get sick of him. He's just saying the same thing over and over, and it kind of he's acting like a dog person. So, but I thought that was interesting. Like, you know, he talks about like Nisha, and I've actually never read any Nisha, but I'm not really familiar with the worldview. But I'm confident he's not providing a proper Nietzschean analysis of this. Yeah. I mean, you know, too, is it some of these things like, you know, if you get into the politics or the worldviews in play here, I mean, sometimes things, yeah, they're not always what they seem, right? Sometimes there's some layers to it, but it's not that complicated. Right. For example, like 2 years in a row, I bashed the Dog Bite Prevention Week as a sham, because it's a sham. Because how does it start out? Well, dogs are man's best friend that give unconditional love. So what does that tell you? It tells you that has been co-opted by some kind of pro-mutt interest, right? It's not about public safety. It's about promoting mutt cult ideals, minimizing the damage, right? Mitigating the concern, and it's about, it's a setup for victim blame. So that's really what it's about. But probably most people can either just pick up on that themselves or understand if they just had a brief, explanation as I've given. So yeah, there's some, it's a little bit complicated, but not that complicated. An average person can understand it. Like, you don't have to get really, deep in, and the corruption involved, like we were talking about, like government bureaucrats abusing their flexibility, the flexibility they have, one way or the other, either to, protect the dogs from us or to remove the protections we should have from them. They abuse their discretion in both ways. But or is it the dog or the owner? It's like, well, anybody with a room temperature IQ should be able to understand that more than one thing can be true at a time. So in many of these dog attacks, you blame the dog for what it did because the dog actually committed the deed, but you blame the owner for enabling him, because if they hadn't brought the dog into the community in the first place, it wouldn't have happened. So the owner has culpability. Even we're talking about stray dogs, like, well, what if it's attacked by one of these feral dog packs? But pursuant to Joe's, analysis, is like all those dogs are descended from pet dogs at some point, right? So you had an irresponsible owner that adopted the dog and then turned it loose or allowed it to run away and pack up. So there's some culpability there, although maybe it's a couple of degrees removed. And also you can blame the people, the humans, the two-legged varmints that advocate for them, right? That protect them, that try to get the government involved to protect these things, to, pass anti-culling provisions and so forth. So they're partially at fault also. But you don't have to be, you don't need a 190 IQ and a dozen PhDs to figure that out, or at least understand it. It's not that complicated, I don't think.
No, and I think if in the country, all animal controls, it's just, like a 3-strike rule for humans, except it's 1 strike, and it's done and it's gone. It snaps in the general direction of a child or another living thing. It's gone. much less, you know, mauling and tearing off body parts and stuff. It's just complete zero tolerance.
Yeah, well, that's the way it should be. That's the way it would, you know, in a way, it's almost the way it was not that long ago, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just fairly recently, you know, it's become like that. But anyway, I thought that like, yeah, all these, like, you were going to apply all this like Nietzschean analysis to this thing. It's like, you don't need to do that. You know, like I
No.
said, it's not, again, there are some layers to it. Like, you can't always take everything here at face value, but you don't have to, like I said, be like a, you know, an expert on like 19th century German philosophy to get a grip on what's going on here.
Now, trying to be 3D chess, but missing the mark or whatever, checkers. I mean, I say Matthias Desmond and you know, mass formation psychosis, because he came out with that during the whole Hey 19 thing, you know, and people's subservience to all of the, you know, it was pretty harsh in California. So and just, you know, the fear of being ostracized is deeper than, you know, the thought of death, because it basically is death, you know, to be cast out from the
Yeah.
tribe, whatever.
Well, that's the
And
way it used to be. It's like, you know, if you got in ancient societies, you know, if you got cast out from the tribe, that was a death sentence
yeah,
because you couldn't survive. I mean, today it's like, yeah, if I get kicked out of town, it's like, well, fine, I'll just live in another town. But
yeah, not as-
but back then, you know, even not that long ago, even in like say the Middle Ages, even definitely even in the time of you know, human. Who was it? Was it Plato or Aristotle had that? They said, okay, you can. It was one of those ancient philosophers. They said, okay, you know, you've got your choice of punishment. You can be put to death, you can be hung or whatever, or you can just walk away. Now, most people today be like, well, that's an easy choice. But back then, you know, walking away was probably a death sentence also, and you didn't know how it was going to be carried out. But yeah, because life was impossible without the tribe. So
yeah. Well, I don't. It's still good to have community or whatever, but not blind allegiance to BS. You know.
yeah, well,
All
that's definitely what they have. And they don't see it. I mean, they see us as being cultish. And I don't think so, because it's like pretty much we're an atomized, you know, group. You know, we have like no political capital, no institutional authority, nothing. So like, how could it be like that? You know, you would no support from the government. So, you know what, we've been on for we're pushing 3 hours, so it's been a great conversation. I think I'm going to wrap it up. So do you have any closing remarks or anything you want to, you know, get the last word in?
Oh, I don't know. Hopefully it's a meaningful conversation. It could just go all over the dang place because there's just so much to it, you know. But I do appreciate and my maiden voyage here, putting my voice out live.
Yeah, you did good. Well, actually, we're not. This is being recorded. I'll probably, because I always clean them up a little bit. I'll probably post. Today's Saturday, so I'll probably post it tomorrow. So, oh, there was one other thing. One of the other YouTubers was saying that they were getting hit with some really high data usages as a result of their live streams. And I haven't done a live stream, so I don't know how those are arranged. I mean, a lot of I guess it depends on what kind of internet plan they have. But, you know, if that's streaming at 4K, maybe there's some, or 8K even, maybe there's some way to, you know, reduce the bandwidth of the stream, like maybe to 1080 or 720 or whatever, because these quote videos, this isn't some big budget science fiction movie with a lot of elaborate special effects. So something like this doesn't need to be put up in the highest resolution. Like, for example, that's what I'll do is I'll import this into Clipchamp, maybe, add some graphics, do a little editing, and, export it and then post it. Typically, I use 720p for that. Part of it, too, is my internet connection is kind of slow. So, yeah, if I exported it in 4K, it would take whatever that is, 12 times. It would consume a ridiculous amount of space on my local. It would take forever to upload, but it wouldn't really, improve the outcome any, right? So, if somebody's having that kind of issue, I'd look into whether it's just like with uploads or a live stream. See if you can maybe, throttle the bandwidth, the throughput somehow, or reduce the file size, somehow. I mean, there's tons of variables there. It's tough to say, but for example, a 4K stream or data source will consume about 4 times the bandwidth, the space on disk and bandwidth as, say, a 1080p.
Yeah, and I also wonder maybe I have I just recently upgraded to, oh gosh, what do they call it? But I had to get new Eero things. They're little transmitters or boosters or whatever, so that your coverage covered more, like housing, metal housing and stuff that kind of jams the thing. I think I went 1 gigabyte download upload kind of thing.
Yeah, well, a lot of it, I mean, you should be able to, I don't know if you could do it in YouTube or even on the device itself, right? Because I'll tell you, if you bring up your let me show something here. We're past the dog discussion, but if you're on Windows, but all these devices have the same kind of thing. Let me switch the let me swap out the stop sharing, and then I'm going to share this other thing. And but is this window showing? Is my task manager, Spotify, image. Oh, here we go. Task manager. So can you see my task manager?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but if you look at see performance now, right now, so like I said, the Wi-Fi is, no, because I'm sending because, because again, this is being recorded on Skype. So actually I'm using the bandwidth twice because all this it's not a stream. It just kind of uploads into it. And then, but then I, download it and then re-upload it to YouTube. But if somebody's having bandwidth issues, there might be a way to throttle it in YouTube, with a live stream. And you might even be able to do it on here also, limit the amount of throughput related to the task. Look at my processes. So let's say I got Discord. Let me see what's the network. So if I sort on that, no, I want that. So yeah, the Skype, so it's using, but it's pretty low, throughput because it's basically just audio. So yeah, somebody you might want to think of that, try to, see if you can, cut down a file size. Oh, and Mr. Johnson has joined us. What is up?
Hey, I apologize for being late. I was doing some other things. Hold on. I gotta interject with this. You guys won't believe what happened. So I've been deciding to give it to the nutters on the Reddit post. This lady reported me to the suicide hotline. That has never happened. I have to dispute this, but it won't let me link it on. I have to figure it out, but I've never had that happen before.
Well, it actually, because I've gotten those too, because that's what they'll do is they think, are you a person in need of like suicide counseling? But if actually, is it actually go like, I think is they can escalate it past that. Like, well, you don't kill yourself, man. I'd like to keep you around.
Oh yeah. How you guys doing? I hate dogs so much I'm gonna kill myself.
Is that to get the cops to 5150 you, which is kind of an inconvenience?
Yeah, I don't think I want to deal with that, but it would be quite funny.
But I mean, they hold you for 48 hours or something like that.
Oh,
I mean,
snap.
I don't know if it'll escalate to that level. I've gotten some of those. Let me see if my go back to the share. Where was that? Was it here? Yeah. Oh yeah, this was my. Yeah, because I think I got one of those notifications once also. 'Cause that's what it is the nutters, even if it's on a sub that's friendly to us, like if you're on dog free or ban pit bulls even, and you say something that's the nutters don't want to hear, is like, yeah, they were, because there's a way in Reddit to do that, right? You could say, okay, this person is threatening suicide or self-harm or whatever. Those people, they're just too much. They really are.
Okay, so I'm learning.
Yeah, they're too much. Hey, since you're on, like I said too, I hate to drop off because you just joined, but we've been on for 3 hours, so we're going to wrap it up. But since you did join, I'd like you to contribute. I mean, how's that litigation going? Any updates there?
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to be contacting them next week because I don't know if it's because of the holidays, but they kind of just dropped off the map. I was supposed to be getting deposed by the defense, but I don't know. They haven't said anything. That was the last I've heard from them. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess, it's a kind of thing with the holidays. Like very little actually gets done from like, Thanksgiving through New Year's. That's just, I mean, in a lot of spaces. So maybe that has something to do with it. Depose you, huh? Wow.
Yeah, they wanted to hear my side of the story. And it's funny, they sent me an insurance card, like I said the last time, and they denied it, and then they sent me a brand new one. So
Very,
I don't know what's going on.
I mean, usually your side of it is in the complaint. A lot of like depositions, like I've been deposed myself, but actually not when I was a party to the case. It was something I was peripherally involved in, and they had a series of depositions of various, peripheral characters in the space. The company I worked for was being sued. So yeah, I got grilled for a while. Like, did anybody ever ask you to do this, or were you ever asked to do that? Or nothing, nothing that would incriminate me, but just to get, was the actually was a plaintiff was looking to get, actually, no, I think I actually was, I don't know if the one, like, because the company attorney questioned me for a while. I don't know if it was a formal deposition, but I was also deposed by the prosecution. So I got in a formal deposition. So I got grilled by them for a while. I got grilled, not really grilled, but I got questioned by the company, attorney for a while. And you got to be careful in those things, because even though I wasn't party to the suit myself, it's like, I got to remember, none of these people are my friends. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I would definitely keep that in mind. They're always going to look for an angle to try to use.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to give them that. You don't harass someone because they don't like dogs.
Yeah. And I think the thing to do is to just, again, I'm not telling you what to do. Wink, wink, right? But usually the good idea is just say as little as possible. Yes, no, don't recall. I'll have to check my records. Things like they don't. And actually, because I'm guilty of this, because I'll tend to run my mouth is get into, long, drawn out, explanations of things. So it's like, I got to remember, okay, like look in the mirror beforehand, just STFU, say as little as possible, right? But if you're being deposed by the defense, because they're going to look for things to hang you on, they're probably going to, put everything you say in the worst light possible. So you got to watch
the
out.
The only issue with that is they are doing the most, let's say, interpersonal way possible. They're going to be doing it over the phone. That's all my advantage. I'm going to be on mute. So, I mean, I will think of an answer for a long time before I say anything.
Yeah, they're going to do like it's a phone deposit. Well, I think mine were over, but it was over video chat. It was over, I forget if we were using maybe Skype or Teams, so everybody could see everybody else.
Shit, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I hope not. If not, hey, I can still put you on mute.
Yeah.
But you pause the video. I mean, oh shit, I could do all kinds of things. Go to the bathroom. Hey,
They'll look for
quick moment.
Yeah, they'll look for like all kinds of facial expressions and all that. Like,
yeah, I will make sure to study a mime video right before.
Well, I wonder if there's a delay, not only because of the holidays, but maybe they're looking over the notes and rethinking. Like, is this really a smart idea for us to, go after this guy? This doesn't seem smart.
Well, like I said before, the owner of the company is real quick to settle. He doesn't want anything in the papers. He doesn't want negative press. If it's something he ain't gonna fight, he ain't gonna fight it. He will dole money at the situation to shut it up. And those are the kind of people I like.
Yeah, maybe they brought up the deposition to just kind of, intimidate you a little bit, because usually depositions are what happens when you're on your, way to trial.
That's what I thought too. And this was like the beginning of October. So I was like, cool, I'm ready whenever. Whenever, excuse me. And that was supposedly November. November is come and gone. We're into December now. And I've heard crickets.
Yeah, well, you got maybe that's the thing is, or it's another attempt to, drag the whole thing out, because that's a very popular tactic in these cases, particularly for a defense, is it just, again, endlessly drag the whole thing out, maybe hoping you'll just give up, right? Because I've encountered that also. So I don't know, and I'm sure that's probably, I think many like of these defense attorneys, that's, part of their toolbox.
I think I've looked at the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, like they'll settle out of court because they don't want the disclosure, the investigation. They don't want all of that to come out. That's very damning. So they just go, let's just settle this and make this go away.
Yeah, they can settle it probably with an agreement to seal all the records. Yeah, that's very common. Yeah. Usually that has to be because they can say, okay, we'll settle, we'll pay you X amount, with the agreement that you'll sign a non-disclosure agreement, right, to not talk about it to anybody, and 2, that you'll, the records will be sealed, so nobody can access them. Yeah.
Discovery. They say they avoid the discovery, which is that's the word. That's the court.
Well, once a case is being litigated, you can do, perform discovery. You can really dig into people. But I've known that you can find out some really interesting stuff about people. But yeah, if they agree to settle and to close all the records, then all that the results of all that research get, sealed up forever. So, but, you can do, once a complaint's been filed, you can do discovery on. I mean, you have access to, information that a normal member of the public would not, right? We were talking about that on here a while back with like, fake service dogs. So let's say you kick out, you think, okay, the dog's fake, and you kick it out, and the owner decides to sue you. Say you run a restaurant, say. Well, the thing is like, if you're in litigation, you can, in discovery, I believe I've seen cases like this where you can actually get those health records, right? Or training docs for the dog or whatever. Doesn't actually have to go to trial or anything. So.
Well, I apologize on being late, and I look forward to hearing what you guys were discussing.
Yeah, we went through a whole bunch of stuff because we were talking about, feral dog pat. What did we go over? Yeah, well, I went over my encounter last weekend with a couple of aggressive pit bulls while
They
hiking.
were on leashes. Yeah, I
Yeah,
read about that.
maybe you can rewind and re-listen. There's some comments on it, but I brought up because our favorite YouTuber, we were talking about him a bit also because you and I, because I guess it wasn't last time or the time before, we're talking about the futility of some of these leashing arrangements. Like if you got a 10-year-old walking a 200-pound bull mastiff, or using one of those ridiculous retractable leashes. But, our favorite YouTuber was, mocking us. Well, you say, oh, yeah, well, they said that, leashes are a fail, so everybody should just turn their dogs loose everywhere. And like, that's not the point. That's what, right. It's a totally done in bad faith. But yeah, that's not the point we were trying to make. The point is, if you can't control the animal, you shouldn't have it at all. That's the point. Not that you.
Well, I mean, it's. No, go
the
ahead.
other part about being with having unleashed dogs in the wilderness, it's like, how do you know that he didn't have shock collars on the dogs, and how do you know that he wasn't in an area during a way, and it's like, to me, I don't care. I don't let them loose.
Yep.
In the wilderness.
Well, it's like every time I go to the beach, there are clearly signs that say no dogs on the beach. I should have recorded my interaction with the lifeguard. That's what I'm gonna do next time when I do an update video and get them on camera saying that we have exhausted the amount of warnings we can give these people, and they're letting the dogs run around on the beach without leashes. I'm like, so you're have a sign that clearly says no, but now you're allowing them to do that because you've exhausted the amount of voice that you have in telling people to not bring them. Then you're just throwing your hands in the air and giving up. So it's the same thing with the hiking. I don't care whether they're on leash or not. If it says they're not supposed to be there, they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah. Yep. Well, yeah, it's not like, well, the dog's on a leash, but if it's banned completely, yeah, it shouldn't be there at all. And even, there's some places where even if it's an off leash area, it's still a bad idea, right? Because, they think, well, my dog's so smart. It's like, no, he isn't. I remember I was hiking with some buddies in North Carolina, and this was back in the 2000s. Actually, this is before I got woke on the issue. And we saw an off-leash dog at one point, with a hiker, and we didn't say anything. The dog didn't behave dangerously toward us or anything. We got back to the camping area. We did say something to the ranger. They're like, well, we said, like, is that dogs on leash? Or because we said we saw a dog off leash, and he said, well, yeah, technically in this part of the forest, you don't have to, the leashes are not a requirement. They're recommended, but not required. But he said we had a situation a while back where a dog off leash just ran off a cliff. It just ran. It just ran. It was one of the. It was like with 100+ foot drop. It just whoop ran right off.
So it wasn't crypto. It wasn't Superman's dog.
I guess not. No, he didn't. The furry Jesus didn't just ascend to heaven. No, I guess was chasing a bug or something and just ran right off the cliff. But and if the dog has a shock collar, if it attacks somebody, it's like. There's a bully breed is like once that dog is in the zone, like once it's in full attack mode, is the collar going to work? I don't think so. I mean, it might. We were discussing that also in the Discord. Is that a lot of times the only way to stop a bully breed from attacking is lethal force. You have to put it down on the spot. So stuff like pepper spray, you've seen those videos too, doesn't work. They're just full rage monster, routine.
Well, and for the ranger to turn a blind eye, saying, "Oh well, that area of the wilderness is okay," so their mutts could, scare up a bear or a mountain lion, and then they got to go and kill that bear or mountain lion.
Yep.
So that's not pro national park or whatever. That's just,
yeah.
Well, there's that also is the not to cut you off. There's that meme they had a long time ago about the dog chasing the bird, and it said, I sent it to my son. I forgot, and I'll paraphrase. It said, "Don't be so intent on destroying something until you'll destroy yourself." And the dog is jumping off the cliff after a bird. Like, okay, you're gonna catch that bird how?
Yeah.
With your magical mutt powers of flight?
They don't. Well, yeah, the self-preservation has been bred out of them, but I think it's what makes them so problematic because they'll just attack anything. They don't care. That's why like a small dog will run out into the street and attack you because they don't. Some nutters will attribute that to bravery, but it's just like mindless stupidity, really. So. Anywho, like I said too, it's like Mr. J, man, I got to apologize, but I'm gonna have to drop off because, like I said, I'm gonna stop the recording. I don't know if you two can chat privately. I guess it's
no. Thank you,
Huntress
guys.
on the call, but like I said, yeah, I need to wrap this stuff up. Yeah, so in any case,
Or like I have chores and dishes and
this is I need to roll myself. So anyway, this is Animal on Control, and as always, people first. Thanks, folks. Catch you next time.
Take care.
Nice to meet you.
Catch you later, man. Sure. Bye.